LGBTQ rights and secularism, they shifted their focus and money to Uganda, a country they identified as ideal ground for a religious takeover. Over 20 major American evangelical groups poured over $50 million into Africa, with Uganda receiving the massive amount of share. United States Christians were successful beyond their wildest dreams. Fundamentalist evangelical and Pentecostal movements successfully embedded themselves within the highest echelons of Ugandan governance, to the point where parliamentarians now openly base legislative goals on biblical mandates rather than constitutional law or science. As in the United States, Ugandan lawmakers framed this effort as defending, quote, traditional Christian family values. The result? Uganda has seen a major surge in state-sanctioned arbitrary arrests, police torture, extortion, correctional rapes, the forced evictions by local councils. The anti-science religious climate has gotten so dangerous that vital HIV healthcare providers and human rights organizations had to shut down out of fear for their safety. Oh, and homosexuality is now punishable by death. This is not unique to Uganda. Russia recently developed a deep transactional symbiosis between Putin's authoritarian state and the Russian Orthodox Church. As in Uganda, homosexuality has been criminalized. Unapproved versions of Christianity, like Jehovah's Witnesses, were banned, their property seized, and hundreds of their members subjected to torture and long-term sentences to Siberian penal colonies. Other evangelical and Protestant groups in Russia face tight restrictions, fines, and bans on worship outside of state-approved buildings. Now let's compare these early days of those movements to what we're seeing in Texas. Over the last 3 years, Texas has been systematically dismantling the wall of separation, replacing trained school counselors with unlicensed anti-science religious chaplains, forcing the Ten Commandments into every public classroom, and just this week, mandating Bible passages as required reading for millions of students. As in Uganda and Russia and other places, the religious right in Texas frames this as harmless return to tradition and defending family values. But as we have seen, the consequences of similar movements around the world show us the true endgame of codifying dogma into law. By defining prosperity and security in religious terms, the state successfully frames human rights advocates, secularists, and minority communities as an existential threat to the state or nation. A thought to end on. Supreme Court Justice Sandra Day O'Connor once famously warned, quote, "Those who would renegotiate the boundaries between church and state must answer a difficult question. Why would we trade a system that has served us so well for one that has served others so poorly?" If you want to talk about this or any other religious issues, call us, because the show starts now. Welcome, 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 everybody. Today is June 28th, 2026, and I want to welcome you to the Atheist Experience. Thank you for joining us. I'm the Cross-Examiner, and I'm delighted to say joining us right now is Godless Engineer. How are you doing, Godless?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good. I'm pretty excited today. I know that we've already got some callers lined up, and so I'm always up for some conversation. I'm a little perturbed by the situation that we find ourselves in, but here in America. But other than that, I'm totally stoked and excited today.
Me too. Me too. We had some callers left over from the last show. I did see that a couple I wanted to talk to have dropped off just as we started. I hope you didn't think that things were over. Call us back if you want to, because we're eager to take your call and talk about these things. Because I don't know about you, Godless, but I'm a firm believer that in talking with each other across the aisle, so to speak, the religious aisle, we can come to a better understanding of each other's positions and hopefully moderate each other to a point where we can get to live with each other without criminalizing homosexuality or prisoning people or favoring my religious group in the tax law or whatever it may be.
Yeah, no, same here. I mean, I hope that we can do that. But, I feel like every day is a big letdown.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So, I mean, I can only hope that the future brings better days, but we'll see.
Yeah, I agree. first, before we get these calls, I'm going to get through this quickly so we can jump on them. We'll need to tell you that the Atheist Experience is a product of the Atheist Community of Austin, a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to the promotion of atheism, critical thinking, secular humanism, and the separation of religion and government. This means, the fact that it's a charity means that you can give us tax-free donations, as many as you want, in fact, and know that not only is it going to go to a good cause, but it also helps you too. We are, I don't know if you've done this yet, John, but we are now triple streaming when we're live. Big shout out to our viewers on TikTok and YouTube mobile. If you're watching us tonight on TikTok and you'd like to talk to us, then request to join and we'll bring you up on stage. Please be sure, however, if you do that, that you are 18 or older. And with that, I think we should just jump into these calls. What do you think?
Oh, yeah. I'm totally down for it.
Okay. I'm fascinated. There's two that fascinate me. I'm going to start with Tom, who wants to share their experience with God. And Tom did not give any pronouns, and it's Tom from Michigan. Tom, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. I'm all right. I just struggle with finding people to have like friendships with or stuff like this. I don't know. I have certain friends, but none of them understand anything about me, and they kind of just think I don't know. They think I think off, but I know this is true. And I don't talk about this with like many people. I've told my like closest friends. I've tried to talk to my dad about it, but my dad's like exactly kind of like you guys, where he's very atheist, and he grew up with like just things that make people atheist. And
well, why don't we start from the beginning then, Tom, and tell us what you're talking about. So let's start with a question that we often ask people as a good starting point. What is it from a religious perspective? What is it that you believe? And more importantly, why do you believe it?
I believe in a higher being that brings, I believe in love and these love feelings that I have. And these.
What do you believe about love? That love exists?
Yeah. So before.
Okay. John, Godless, do you believe love exists?
Yeah, it totally exists. I mean, it's obviously, I think that it's, chemical reactions in our brains that gives us a certain experience.
Listen.
Oh, I'm so sorry. The middle of my sentence interrupted the beginning of yours. So continue.
Yeah, Tom, I asked John a question, Godless, so we could get a consensus here. And then we were going to throw it back to you. That's how the show works. So please, Godless, do continue.
Never done.
Yeah.
I don't.
So like, I understand it is the chemical process that gives us those experiences. And so I don't see a need to like suppose a larger meaning to that. I feel like we can just have those experiences and let those experiences sit with how they are, as opposed to attributing them to some kind of magical wizard that is necessary for it or somehow enables us to have those feelings. I just don't see the need for that God or that wizard or however you want to present them. I don't see the need for them in that process.
What do you think, Tom? Tom. Oh, there he is. Okay.
I don't know. I don't know what to make of that.
Well, I asked you what you believed from a religious perspective and why, and the first thing you mentioned was love. So we assumed you meant love was God, or there was a religious aspect to love, and we told you, well, we believe that love exists, so we agree with you that it exists, but we don't think that there's a religious component. Do you?
I don't know. I don't believe in everything that's been told in the Bibles. I don't believe a lot of the Bible stuff. I believe that some of these stories are probably true. I just know that there are deeper feelings. And hold on, I'm trying to tell you something, because this stuff doesn't make sense to me, or I don't really know how to make it, or it does make sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, I was trying to interject so that I could help guide you in getting your thoughts collected, and so that maybe we can actually, instead of meandering around in the dark, maybe I can give you a flashlight, right? So maybe you can tell us exactly how do you know, or what exactly is compelling to you that convinces you that there's something beyond just our mere experience?
None of this, like, that I have can be like provable or anything I'm going to say, but these are like experiences and places that I've been to and have experienced, but it's just like a place that I went to and I don't know how I got there. And I came back, and everything that I used to know or care about, and I didn't even know anything when I came back. I didn't know who I was or where I was, what I was.
Let me jump in, Tom.
Well, now you're
talking. I'm going to guide the conversation because this is our show, and I've got lots of callers on the line.
Okay.
And you're talking in these abstract ways. I had experiences. I didn't know who I was. I don't know what to take from you as being literal or being figurative.
Telling you
what I am interested in right now is from a religious position. Well, first of all, let's back this up to a higher level. Why are you calling today? What's your goal? Is your goal to talk about your experiences, or is your goal to talk about some assertion about God and why you think it's true?
Wrong that God is not evil or something, and I just wanted to tell my story and tell you I think that this is the most important thing. And
do you understand that a story is not the best way to present evidence?
We are all so special to have those, and of course there's a God, because
Tom?
feel love feelings.
Tom? I'm muting you, Tom. So, Tom, do you understand that a story is not the same thing as presenting evidence as to why you're right? Right? I want you to contemplate this. If your goal, as you said, is to dispute the assertion that God is not evil, I would expect an answer along the lines of, God has the following attributes. Those attributes are not evil. Therefore, God is not evil. That would be like a sound and valid argument. What you're telling me is, I think love is real, and I went places and I didn't know who I was. That's not a response to this prompt. Either you are unable right now, due to whatever reason, to answer the question, or you don't want to. So I'm going to give you another chance. Tom, why do you believe that there is a God and that God is not evil?
I tried to give you context before I told the story. That's what that was.
Okay, we don't need the context. Give us your argument.
And I can't give you an argument. I can just
give
you a story.
That's fair.
That explains these things, and that's all that would matter. But
are you interested in any self-examination today?
A what?
Self-examination, turning your eye onto yourself and examining your thought processes and your reasoning, because I think there might be an interesting conversation to have in that spot that might be interesting to our listeners. Specifically, the question would be, if you can't explain why you believe something, do you think that you should be believing it in the first place?
Yeah.
Do you think that's a good way to find truth?
Understandable. These are feelings of love, feelings that aren't anything you'd ever have for like your kids or your grandparents or anyone you've ever known in your life. I was brought somewhere and I felt feelings that I can't describe or really ever put into words for you, but it was a place where...
Hold on. I'm sorry, but I need to interject here. I don't understand the purpose of your call, Tom. Is it just because you wanted somebody to talk to? Because if that's the case, then I'd suggest the Recovering from Religion Foundation. They have people there that are trained to actually help guide you.
Anybody.
What?
I want wanted to try to tell you why God is a thing and that it's definitely real.
Then tell us why you think that instead of explaining how your fifis are today. Can you do that for us, Tom?
Well, it's a part of my dream, and it's a story that I have.
You had a
No,
dream.
okay. Let me give you an example, Tom, of what we're getting at. Godless Engineer is an engineer. I'm an attorney. We deal with, science-based, evidence-based reasoning and logic. It's kind of like, how the world gets better, right? It's how we build bridges that don't fall down and kill people, because it's not because we felt like it was a good way to build a bridge. It's because we've measured the tensile strength of this particular bolt under this amount of pressure. If I went into court and I said, my client is not guilty because I had a dream and it took me to a place and I felt so much love for my client, he couldn't possibly have shot the victim, right? You would laugh me out of court, I hope, as a juror. Do you agree with that? That would be not a good way to get to the truth if you were in a court of law?
These are stupid arguments. I'm not debating you on some
Okay.
off-topic thing. I'm here to talk about...
Yeah, off-topic thing is evidence. That's what I'm talking about. Evidence for your claims. God exists, and your evidence is... I don't care the details of your story. Your evidence is a personal story.
All the evidence has been hidden and deleted, and there's scholars that think they know everything to try and make us brainwashed into believing this.
Now we're making some claims. What evidence do you have of that?
There are scholars everywhere who make everyone think that they are right, and they are not right.
I would argue every scholar tries to make people
They
believe
deleted
that they're
everything,
right.
and then they made these people and claimed them to be.
So, John, what's your take on this?
Well, I feel like what Tom is saying here is that he had a dream that made him believe that God was real. And so he wants to come up here and tell us in a vivid detail what his dream was so that we will then admit that his God is real. But I don't see how a dream that he had, where I'm not exactly sure what he was going through there. That's why I suggested the Recovering from Religion Foundation. But it seems like he had an intense experience that made him believe in God. And maybe it's a little uncomfortable for him to consider that other people don't believe it. Maybe he's getting a little bit of pushback from home, like, hey dude, that's just a dream, like I've had a dream where I was crawling at skyscraper heights and then I started to fall, and that was scary. But that doesn't mean that the giant skyscraper horrible reality is actually true in some kind of way. So Tom, when we bring you off of mute, I would really love for something other than a dream or a vision or something like that.
Or a conspiracy theory.
Or a conspiracy theory. How do you know that your God is real? Don't shit talk scholars. Don't shit talk other people. Just tell me why do you believe what you believe about God?
Because I get these love feelings from him and these other things, and it's not
okay. And now we're right back to the very beginning of our conversation, where you use the love feelings as just using your word here, your words, the love feelings that you feel. Where does God take part in the process of that experience of love? In my view, let me explain to you my view and then I'll let you answer. In my view, it's a chemical reaction in your head that operates within the structure of your brain and how your brain operates and how you feel those feelings, how you have those experiences that cause other complex interactions with the other parts of your brain that then give you that full experience of love. Now, I don't know where God factors into that. Maybe you can tell me, point to the part of the brain or the part of the process where God factors into it.
It's got nothing to do with the brain or anything.
Have you, that's a great response. Have you ever, what evidence do you have that feelings exist in the universe absent a brain?
Because I remember, man, I can't I can't say anything to you.
Let me put it another way.
Call me crazy
Do
or
rocks
anything,
do
but
rocks
I've
have
had
feelings?
Experiences out of my body where I
Do
was
rocks have feelings,
where I
Tom?
was nothing but a consciousness,
Do
and
you,
I'm
do you
stuck
Tom,
at
Tom,
a certain
Tom,
speed.
Tom,
What?
Tom?
Yeah,
Do rocks have feelings?
I don't know.
Do you think they have feelings? What's more likely? A rock has feelings or a rock
Probably
doesn't
not.
have feelings? What's more likely?
Probably not.
Okay. So at least we can agree on that. I have yet to experience anything that doesn't have a brain that I have any evidence of that it experiences feelings. I think you would agree if we took 30 minutes to pin you down on that. So I'm going to shortcut that and just say, I think we agree. It's much more likely that nothing without a brain has feelings. So I'm just setting that up. So then my follow-on question is, what creates feelings in brains? Is there only one cause, or can there be multiple causes? And then my second question is, can the person experience the feelings, can the person experiencing the feelings be wrong about the cause of those feelings? I.e., could you be wrong about the source of your feelings?
That's what those beings do. They want you.
Answer the question, Tom. Tom, answer the question. Why aren't you answering the question, Tom?
Hold on, maybe you should use his actual name, Matthew.
Gotta explain it harder to me then.
Tom, answer the question or admit that you're unwilling to answer the question.
What question?
Could you be wrong about the source of your feelings?
No.
Okay, you are infallible. Congratulations. You got anything else, Godless?
Yeah, Matthew, I'm just kind of curious. Sorry, Tom. I'm just kind of curious. Like, since you don't really have a good answer for where God factors into the process of love, that we have the chemical processes.
There is no real answer for this. I can't actually explain it to you. I just know about these.
Then why should we believe in your version of God?
Places that I've been.
If you can't explain it, Matthew, lock in, Matthew, listen to me. If you can't explain it to us, then why do you think that we should believe in your version of God? Why does it bother you so much that we don't believe in God, or that your dad doesn't believe in God?
It doesn't bother me.
Then why are you calling in? It bothered you enough to call in because we don't believe in God, and you wanted to explain why your God exists.
No. I wanted to tell you a thing that I experienced that was way more than it felt like reality was. This reality feels way less than this place that I was in.
How can we just differentiate your experience from the experience of somebody who's wrong? How can we differentiate your experience from somebody who was on LSD but didn't know it? How can I tell the difference?
Hey, you gotta believe in me.
How can I tell the difference?
And you can take it for
Tom, you're talking and not listening. How can I tell the difference between what you say is happening and somebody else who has a different version of the story but is wrong? Like they were on LSD, they got dosed and didn't know it. How could I tell the difference between you two, that you are right and the other person who was unknowingly on LSD was wrong?
Because mine gets into things that the person on LSD would have never gotten into.
Okay, you're just wrong, Tom. You just have no logic whatsoever.
Matthew, let's lock in, right? And you're just false there. The LSD, in the hypothetical, the LSD person has the exact same quantity of experience as you have. It's exactly the same. What's the differentiating factor in those experiences that makes yours real and theirs not?
Because mine lasts forever, and I don't know who I am when I woke up in there, and I didn't know who I was when I came back, and I didn't know anything.
Do you think someone tripping out on LSD is going to know who in the fuck they are in the moment? Like, I mean, I've never done LSD, so I guess I don't know. But at the same
Yeah, I
time,
mean, his saying mine lasts forever is actually, quite frankly, the most logical thing you've said today, Tom. Like, we could run experiments where we monitor somebody's blood intake and all that, but that wasn't the point. And I think you know that wasn't the point. The point is, as a third-party observer, I'm getting testimony from you that you're right because you say you're right because you feel you're right. And I get testimony from somebody else who calls me and says, God is evil, and I know that because I feel all this hate from God, and it lasts forever, and I'm convinced that I'm true because I feel it's true. And then when I ask that person how I could tell the difference between you two, he says, because this other guy's wrong, just like you're saying he's wrong. How do I get out of that Spider-Man situation where we're pointing at each other as to which one's wrong and which one's right? And to date, you haven't given us anything other than, trust me, bro. And that's not a good way to find out the truth. Anybody else comes to you with a proposition about something you should or shouldn't do, 99% of the time, they're going to have some evidence that they give you that will lend support. Now, it may be fabricated, but at least it'll be evidence. It's not just, trust me, bro. I wouldn't trust you if you said, hey, invest with me. Give me $1 million. I'll turn it over tenfold in 10 days. Trust me, bro. So why should we believe anything you say? What evidence do you have other than your feelings?
I mean, they're not like my feelings. These were real places that I've been to.
no, wait a second. You started off saying that it was your feelings, like these were your deep love feelings,
I've never
right?
said that.
Right.
Oh, yeah,
You
yeah,
said
yeah.
love
I did
feelings.
say that. Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
I appreciate the call,
Was there
Tom.
something else?
Have a good day. We'll work with you again if you call back someday. But man, that's not the best way to kick off the show with somebody I mean, I guess I have to address anybody that's watching. If you are a religious person of any stripe, do you think that Tom was the best argument for the existence of God? If not, give us a call. We gave him a chance. I don't think we were rude, but my goodness, I think that's the most abstract, illogical call I've gotten in years.
Yeah, I do want to emphasize to people that if you feel the need that, you want to call and express like these thoughts or feelings that you have and you're confused by them, there are, there are plenty of organizations out there. Recovering from Religion is a perfect organization to call up. They have like a chat line. They've also both textual chat on their website, as well as you can call in, or you can use seculartherapy.org and you can get a line on some good secular therapy. Either one, those would be the places to call in and talk about your feelings and how they made you feel and how confused you are, as opposed to, well, I mean, I'm just an asshole on the internet, just calling an asshole on the internet and asking them what their thoughts are on it or something, trying to convince them of one thing or another. That's what I would suggest.
I agree. I echo that. I have serious concerns about what Tom is going through. I'll leave it at that. I hope, Tom, you find the help you need to address these issues. I think that if you are finding that everybody you know and everybody who cares for you and people on the internet who do this for a living and analyze sort of claims, if you find everybody is, in your eyes, ignoring you and maybe even eventually in a conspiracy against you to hide the truth, I think that's a sign you really need to talk that out, because I'd be very worried if you lived your life that way and didn't sort of face the question of, what if I'm wrong? What if this is just an experience or a feeling I'm going through? I've told this story before on the show. The very short version is, went through a 15-hour surgery, came out of it. The nurse was trying to steal my stuff and not feed me and all these things. And after investigation of a good friend of mine, she found out, oh, you were put on this new pain med. Attending comes over and goes, oh, yeah, we're putting you on the old pain med. As soon as that happened, nurse was the nicest person, and I realized I was just imagining the whole thing. But while it was going on, I would have sworn under oath, at the risk of losing my livelihood, losing my law license, I would have sworn that this was going on. You have to understand that your mental state is only evidence of your mental state. It's not evidence of anything else. Physical evidence is great. Consensus evidence is great, but anecdotes, especially of one, and where the anecdote includes everybody around me is trying to convince me I'm wrong, you might want to start looking into the possibility that you're wrong and there's other causes. I don't know if you've ever had any of those experiences, Godless, where you're like, man, it could be little things like, I swear to God, this thing happened and everybody with me was wrong. And then I look at the video that was taken as, nope, it didn't happen. But I think we've all had moments where we were convinced, but we were wrong.
Oh yeah, I mean I'm wrong all the time. My wife is sure to point out when I am, so I've got that good barometer there.
Excellent, very very good. Okay, so callers, I think you can do better than that. We've set a very low bar here. If you want to defend what Christians are doing in Texas, call us. If you think that what happened in Uganda in the name of Christianity was good, call us. We have other callers. I have a few announcements and we'll get to you callers. First of all, please like the video and subscribe to the channel, enable notifications and comment below on your favorite caller. Right now we have one, maybe he's your favorite. Another way to support us is by sending in super chats. Get them in and we will read as many as possible on the air. That's a great way to support the team. Next, if you're in the Austin area, which is where the ACA is located, of course, follow us on Meetup to keep up with community events. You can see what's going on at tiny.cc/ACA Meetup. There's events like Philosophy Under the Stars, game nights, and more. Next, you can join our weekly watch parties at the Free Thought Library on Sundays for live viewings of Talk Heathen and the Atheist Experience every Sunday. Doors open at noon, and it's a great place for community building. Last but not least, we have to thank the people who screen the calls like you just heard and try to figure out what they are before they get on stage. The people who man the microphones, the cameras, the mixer boards, get the streams together across 3 different platforms every single show, every single week. There they are. A big thank you to our crew who put this show together every week. Video operators, audio operators, note takers, call screeners, chat moderators. Would you like to be one of these gorgeous, attractive, financially successful gods among men and women? Would you like to be a guest on one of our shows? Would you like to try hosting a show? We're always looking out for people interested in being a part of our production. So if you're interested, please email volunteer@atheist-community.org to get involved. That's what I did several years ago, and I've really enjoyed working with the team. I eventually got to go out for the Bat Cruise one year. That was awesome. Have you done the Bat Cruise, Godless?
I have not been lucky enough to do the back cruise yet, but I'm hoping to make it out there one year. I think that I'm a little preoccupied this time around too.
Yeah,
but I'm really hoping. I'm really hoping to make it out there sometime soon.
Okay. All right. Well, maybe we can see each other one of these years. I'm going to take the next caller, unless you have any other comments on the amazingly attractive crew we just showed.
I'm really appreciative of the crew. They make things happen here, so I'm so glad that they're able to make stuff work all the time.
It's stunningly good what they do. All right, we're going to go to Gannon, who's been on the line. I know we have a few other callers. We will get to you. Please hold on. Gannon, no pronouns given, from California. All the comment is crazy Jesus doomsaying believer. I don't know. I don't think our call screener wrote this, but maybe that does describe you, Gannon. What would you like to talk about today? Would you like to talk about crazy Jesus-believing, doom-saying madmen?
That's funny. That's really funny. Is that what he said? Why would he say something like that?
I'm having trouble hearing you. Can you hold your mic closer to your mouth?
Yeah, I'm real close to you right now. Can you hear me?
There we go. That's much better. So, are you a doomsaying madman, or do you want to talk about them?
No, I just wanted to share my experience, just like Tommy was trying to share his, and I hope Tommy finds what he's searching for. I got to tell you,
do you think, quick question before you get into your story, do you think Tommy was searching for something, or was Tommy just trying to reaffirm his currently held beliefs? Because I hope that you're searching for something and you're interested in a conversation. Tommy just wanted to just keep repeating his love. So what do you think? Was Tommy searching for an answer?
I think he's a confused gentleman, and the right counselor would bring him in.
Yeah. All right, go ahead for it, Cannon. What do you believe and why?
Well, the first thing I want to say, I'm really honored to be amongst a lawyer and somebody that's a general engineer. I think that's what you said. You guys are pretty smart. And, you know, I'm just a layman. I was born and raised in California, and I've worked my butt off all my life like most laymen do. And ever since I was a child, I've been interested. And I started reading the scriptures
Gannon,
early.
Gannon, could you give us a statement first, and then we can get to the story if it's relevant? I asked you what you believe and why, and we've heard a preamble. So why don't you get to the point? We have a lot of callers. So what do you believe with respect to gods and why?
I believe we've been lied to. I believe that we've been taught traditions and lies. And you've got to look at your history and study to see what the enemy has done. He has counterfeited everything.
Who is the enemy?
Satan.
Okay, so I'm taking it that you believe that there is a God and that there is a Satan. Is that correct?
His name's not God. He's not a God.
Okay.
So the Hebrew, that's the English word, and that's wrong. In fact,
let's not argue about definitions. That's a losing argument, Gannon. The traditional idea that people have of a supernatural, very powerful, possibly creator of the universe is what generally people call God or whatever you want to call it. Do you believe that one of those exists?
Oh, most definitely.
And why? Why do you believe that that thing exists?
Because just the evidence alone of Yahusha, I believe the name is not Jesus.
The name doesn't matter. Gannon. Gannon. I won't say it again.
The name matters. Sir,
Gannon.
Sir.
Gannon.
The name
Gannon.
matters. You know,
Gannon.
The name matters.
Gannon.
You're a lawyer. You're a lawyer. The name matters. You're a lawyer. Come on.
I'm a lawyer. You know what it has at the beginning of every statute and every contract? It has a definition section. And that definition section applies to the scope of that statute or that contract. So if I sign up a contract with Godless here, where he's going to sell me his car that was once owned by Elvis, and I'm going to pay him $1 million for that car, I could start at the beginning of the contract to say, John, the owner of the car with the serial number XYZ that he is saying was once owned by Elvis, parentheses, car. Or I could call it blurblop, right? But what we did is right at the beginning, we came to an understanding of what blurblop meant or car meant. And then for the rest of that conversation that is that contract or that statute, I'm just going to say blurblop. And we've come to an agreement on the idea. You shouting that the name or the label of the thing is important is concerning to me because I don't think you're genuinely interested in talking about why you believe. Because as soon as I asked you why you believed in this blurblop, God, thing, you went off on a name argument. And that to me, in the courtroom, is a sign that you don't want to talk about what I just asked you. So I'm going to ask you again. I'm going to take you off of mute, and I'm going to ask you, why do you believe in this blurblop? Gannon, are you with us? Yep.
Yeah.
So why do you believe in blurblop?
What is blurblop?
Were you not listening to everything I just said?
I was listening to your authority of the name and why the name wasn't important and everything.
Yeah, and what did I say John's car that was owned by Elvis was? It was blurblop. Just like we could call your God blurblop. The name doesn't matter. So why do you believe in blurblop?
I don't believe in blurblop.
You don't believe in an all-powerful being that possibly created the universe?
I believe that God
Okay, there we go.
became man. I believe God became man and he became flesh and he walked amongst us.
Okay, why do you believe that this God exists? That's the question I've been asking now for 5 minutes. Why?
Too much archaeological evidence. Man, they found
Give us your best one.
Noah's Ark. They found they found Noah's Ark.
Okay, John, I'm going to kick it over to you. We're going to address the first piece of evidence. The first piece of evidence we've ever been given when I asked for your best was they found Noah's Ark. What are your thoughts on that, Godless?
Yeah, no, this is a Ron Wyatt claim that is not accurate at all. What they found was a case of pareidolia in an area that they figured to be like where Noah's Ark might have landed. And all they saw was a rock formation that vaguely looks like the outline of what they think an ark or a
FYI, you're now talking to our audience because he's hung up. But please do continue.
Yeah, so that was really interesting. I really wanted to interact with Gannon.
I did.
Well, I mean, he says that the enemy is Satan. And so the thing that I've been doing here lately is I've been trying to provoke an instance of cognitive dissonance with some people. Mm-hmm. And that's by juxtaposing what is part of the tenets of the Satanic Temple against what God has commanded in the Bible. And so, like, I'll put up things like, okay, tell me, is this God or Satan? The fact that you can a father can sell their daughter into sexual slavery. Like, is that God or Satan? And they're going to be like, oh, that they could either admit that it's God or they'll say that it's Satan. Either way, the next question is, okay, is this God or Satan that the freedoms of others should be respected? Is that God or Satan? And, you know, they'll be like, oh, that sounds like God. That's great. And it's like, no, that's actually a tenet. That's tenet number 4 of the Satanic Temple. So no, that's actually Satan, the supposed enemy. And so it's rather crazy, this preconceived notion they have of Satan in this respect. Now, I'm not saying that Satan is real or anything like that, but yep. I definitely think that the Bible doesn't exactly have like a Satan figure that is as evil as they think he is. He's just portrayed as being evil, and people have just been like, yeah, he's fucking evil.
Yeah, I think I too wanted Gannon to stay on because he finally gave us a piece of evidence. And Gannon, if you want to call back, feel free. Maybe your phone was just conveniently disconnected the moment we started talking about one piece of evidence you gave us. If you're not calling back because you just were asked for evidence and we're allowed to talk around that question, you're a coward. You're a coward. And you know what? I've been doing this for years, and I'm going to call Christians out on this. The Christians that are willing to call into the show and have honest conversations, I'm not talking to you. I've had a lot of great conversations with a variety of people with a variety of religious beliefs. The best conversations were where somebody was willing to answer honestly and explore down to the real point where we disagree, because we don't really disagree on a lot. We tend to disagree down when we get down to good reasons to believe things. And we all have this little space of things that we reserve in our head that in order for me to stop believing this thing, I'm going to need a whole bunch of momentum. I'm going to need a whole bunch of evidence, a whole bunch of talking, years and years of exposure to counter evidence of what I previously held. It's not just a one conversation thing. And it can be religion for some people. It can be other things. I remember one of the best speeches I had that illustrates this was when Sam Harris gave a speech, and he started out citing all of this stats about how bad having fireplaces in your house are for your health. Like the smoke increases your cancer rates. It's bad for children. It can give them asthma. All of these things, like you can lose energy up through it. And his conclusion was we should outlaw fireplaces in houses in the United States. And that feeling of like, oh, God, no, I like fireplaces. They keep me warm. It's cheery, especially at the holidays. I'm an atheist that likes Christmas. I decorate it and stuff.
Standard comes from.
Right. I mean, all of these things. But it was a great way to demonstrate to somebody who was a non-believer of, hey, there's something in your head that when you're presented with evidence, you still want to reject that evidence. You want to reject that feeling. And I feel like a lot of people will get to that space, and that's an interesting place to have conversations. But when you posture like Gannon did, when you beat your chest and try to gain control of the conversation on a call-in show, and then run away at the first realization that you're not going to be able to do that, I'm going to call you a coward. So call back if you want to just man up and have the conversation and truly examine why you believe things, or don't call back. One of the two, because I think our listeners are bored of people who just turn tail and run. I don't know, Godless, on your call-in shows, have you had those sorts of moments where you had those really long, interesting conversations with somebody who like is willing to admit, yeah, I just kind of like it, or something like that, where it's my faith, right? It gets down to that point.
Yeah, I mean, that happens like all the time, but it just illuminates that they don't have like a good reason to believe, in those things. And it, for me at least, it creates this sort of instance where they start questioning their beliefs, like why they believe them, not necessarily so that they can like leave their belief or anything like that. But the main thing that I want to do in all of my conversations here is to provoke this sense of, questioning, what I believe and why I believe it, and allowing yourself to come to your own conclusions without having other people dictate what those conclusions should be. I think that that's the biggest thing that's missing from a lot of, the religious community and everything. They're allowing people to tell them what to think instead of using their reasonable and rational faculties in order to come to their own conclusions.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Part of my concern with religion has always been this sort of community groupthink combined with the possibility of covering up mental illness. If somebody comes to me and says, man, the devil has been really on my ass today, they might really think that there is a devil that's been trying to eat them or pursue them, or they might be using an expression. And either way, their church community will give them cover to go undiagnosed longer or things like that. And to be clear, I think people who say religious beliefs are crazy or things like that, that's not what I'm saying. That's not true, and I will fight you on that one. I'm talking about this like, I can't tell when somebody comes to me and says, I had love and I went to another place and I didn't know where I was and nobody around me believes me. I don't know if they're high right now, if they've got mental health issues, if they genuinely believe it, or they're a troll. I just don't know. So when I find those people who are willing to actually turn that eye on themselves and question it and make me turn my eye on myself and question my beliefs, that I think are the great conversations. Maybe our next caller, Muhammad from India, him, will do that. Let's see if I can get Muhammad on the line here. Muhammad, it says you want to respond to the show theme, God is evil, change our minds. So do I have you right? Is that what you'd like to talk about?
Yes, we will start with that. Then we will discuss as we move forward, inshallah. And
okay, so what's your response to the show's theme, God is evil? What's your response to that assertion?
I think evil and good both are relative, which can be applied to human beings, because God is beyond evil and good. So it is from what you are measuring good and evil, and that is one of the reasons your statement.
Well, so Muhammad, if I can ask a clarifying question real quick? What is it?
Yes, absolutely. We're discussing this. Ask whatever you want to ask.
Okay, I don't know what it means to be beyond good and evil. Do you mean that God is beyond any kind of like either moral condemnation or any kind of moral analysis? Like, is that what you mean? Or what do you mean by beyond good and evil?
Okay, very good question. Listen, the philosophy, because I am a believer, I follow Islam. So what we believe is that God is the one which created everything. So every rules and regulation is being derived from God itself.
Gotcha.
So it will be very illogical to apply the same rules and regulation on God.
So there's two forms of this. I want to know which camp you're in. One form of this is sort of the divine command theory, which says if God orders you to do something or puts a rule in place, then by definition, that is good. We are in no place to judge. So if God today told Abraham to kill his son and for no reason other than God said to do so, then that by definition is a good thing. So that's divine command theory. The other side of that coin or camp is, I'm not sure what you call this, is God is in and of himself goodness, and therefore it is impossible for God to do anything that was not good. Like, it's almost like he's constrained by a bigger goodness. He is the nature of goodness. So they're two sides of the same coin. Is that what you're talking about when you talk about this?
God is capable of everything.
Is he capable of doing something that's evil?
I told you that evil and good is relative.
So is it impossible for him to do something that's evil?
These are wordplay only. Right now you're doing...
No, it's not. No, it's not. It is true or false that it is possible for God to do something that's evil. If God can't do anything that's evil because evil doesn't apply to him, then it is impossible for God to do something that's evil. That would be the answer. That's all I'm trying to illustrate.
No, you are just doing wordplay. Listen to me what I'm saying.
It's not. It's not. There is a set of things in the universe, of actions that could be taken that we would define as evil. I'm asking are any of the actions that God would take in that set? That is not wordplay. That's math.
I am saying very simple thing. The things you are defining as evil is because those things has been described as evil by God's command. So you cannot apply the same.
You're not answering the question. Let me ask it a different way before I turn it over to John. Can a rock be evil? Can a rock do something that's evil?
It depends upon you. Well, what do you mean by a rock doing evil, and what do you mean by a rock doing a good deed? What is the meaning of this?
My question is very simple. It's not relative to me, unless you're telling me that morality is relative. I don't think that's your argument. Can a rock
morality
do something that's evil or even be evil in and of itself?
Let me first put my claim very simply.
You're not answering two questions now. You have not answered two questions. Why should we keep talking to you?
I think I've noticed a very simple pattern among all the atheist community that you people have no arguments, and the only argument you have.
No, we do have.
Oh my gosh!
We're trying to make an argument with you. So, like for instance, Muhammad, if Allah were to somehow tell you to marry and grape a 9-year-old, would that be good or bad?
Yeah, that will be totally fine. Yes, that will be totally good, because if God is commanding that to do, so that is a totally fine thing. Because
hey, I'm dropping him. That's disgusting.
I mean,
you're a disgusting human being.
0 to P3DO in like no time. Holy shit. That would be good. Yes, it would be good. God tells you to rape a 9-year-old child. That is a good thing because God told you. Like, wow, what the fuck?
That's, I mean, it's divine command theory illustrated the best way I've ever heard it. I mean, there was a call that Tracy Harris took like 15 years ago on this show where she spent 20 minutes walking this guy, and she's the famous one where she says, you know, the difference between your God and mine is, you know, I prevent the pedophile from raping the child. Your God says, you know, go ahead and rape, but I'm going to punish you later. And she gets the caller, I think it's the same call, she gets the caller into a corner where she talks about the victim and says, you know, what about the little girl or the little boy? And the caller says, well, they had to do something in their life that deserved that or something like that. And it was like, mind-blowing moment in me watching this. Like, this guy genuinely participated in the conversation for like 30 minutes, got to this point, and it was this, what you just said, Mohammed, is a billion times worse than what that guy said. You should be ashamed of yourself. That's like, Have you ever had anything like that? Like, that's the first time I've ever heard that so blatantly on the show.
Oh no, yeah, that's why I immediately went there. I was here, so I've got like an entire database that I've conscripted or constructed that has like all of these arguments for the Quran, and I don't know all of them by heart yet. So I go through them, and I was trying to look for a good one that was about genocide. And just because like I didn't want to go straight to the P3DO thing, but then he was telling, oh, atheists don't have any arguments. It's like, oh, okay, well maybe we don't. Let's say that we don't in this respect for the moral argument. If God tells you to do this thing that's obviously horrible, is it good? And him going directly to it, like it either goes one or two ways. Either they immediately go to P3DO apologetics, or they try to make some convoluted argument that Aisha wasn't actually 9 years old. So it was going to go one way or another. And, him going directly for P3DO apologetics seems, pretty much spot on.
I'll give him this. He wasn't playing word games. He answered the question. Like, that's equivalent to getting a witness on the stand and being like, did you shoot the victim? And they go, yep.
Totally did, and it was fun.
I did it because I hated him, and I thought about it ahead of time, and I knew it would be illegal. It's like, Jesus. Oh my gosh. Muhammad, I sincerely hope that you were a troll. I sincerely hope that was a show. I somehow think it was not, and I feel very sorry for you I think you're a better person, to quote what Tracy said on that episode. I think you're a better person than your God. I think you know that that's wrong, and you have been forced and backed into a corner based on whatever caused you to want to believe in this God, your society, indoctrination, your parents, the consequences of not believing in your current community, whatever it is that has convinced you that that's more important than basic human decency. I don't think that you think that would ever really be true, that it would be perfectly fine for a grown man to marry and sexually assault a 9-year-old. Mm-hmm.
I think that he was serious, but
yeah,
one can have a positive outlook, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, that's my funny, the self-examination I talk about. That's my mind trying to reconcile the cognitive dissonance I have of nobody would ever say such a thing, and then hearing somebody say it, my mind jumps to, well, it can't be real. They can't sincerely believe that, could they? But you're right. That's me trying to be optimistic about humanity. So,
wow. Before we take our next call,
Mm-hmm.
I do want to say, everybody over there on TikTok, if you disagree with the prompt of God being evil, we do sincerely want you to try to change our mind. So request up, use that request button down there to request up and talk to us if you would like to try to change our mind about God being evil. Abrahamic God generally is what we kind of like handle here. But if you have some kind of like DIY God that you want to prove isn't evil, we would love to take that challenge on. Otherwise, if you're on other platforms, you can call in using 512-991-9242, and you can interact with us. So definitely get those calls in now if you think that you can prove that God is not evil.
You've got such a great voice for this. I love it. Have you been told that before?
No,
you haven't.
Normally, people hate my voice because they
people who fall victim to your argument.
They detect a little bit of that Southern twang to it on occasion, and so they don't like it. But
no, I liked the way you handled that. You can also visit, by the way, aca.show/call. Lots of ways. I think you listening at home, if you're interested in sort of exploring this space, talk about where the United States is going from this Christian nationalism perspective, or even if you're religious and you're appalled by where the country's going, we'd love to hear from you. I think you would do better than the first 3 callers, which can be summarized as, basically, I was in a mental state equivalent to being on LSD for a long time, and I think everything is God or something. I think that because I heard that somebody found Noah's Ark, therefore we need to call God some other name, and there's a conspiracy theory of trying to hide it. And then finally, we should, as long as God says it's okay, you should be able to sexually assault 9-year-olds. I think that's the bar we've set so far. If you're sitting at home and you're shaking your head and doing the no true Scotsman of call-in show listeners and going, those people weren't real arguers, those people weren't real believers, you should call in. Tell us what you believe and why, even if you just want to chat. That said, let's go to Joel in California. No pronouns given. He wants to talk about what they believe and why. That's the questions we ask, Joel. So let's pull Joe up here. Joel, what do you believe? And more importantly, why do you believe it?
On the air. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Whoever's in the room that you had to tell you were on the air, thank them for giving you space. So go ahead. What do you believe and why?
I'm so excited and nervous. I'm a theist. I'm a Christian.
Okay.
And why do I believe it? I guess get straight to the point. Well, I can see the devil. Is that bad?
When you say you can see the devil, do you mean literally your eyes are seeing things and that is a figure that has light reflecting off of it and it's a devil?
Right. Well, I wouldn't say that unless, I've had, video and photographic evidence of what I've seen, So this is not like you believe in me or whatever. I guess you have to believe me at this point. But I guess, unless I could send the pictures in to you and talk at a later date, I guess, can you take that at my word?
Well,
I'll turn it over to John. I think would agree. We can take you at your word that you believe you can see the devil. I'll take you at that word. Go ahead, John.
Okay.
Yeah, but so I feel like
you do have a voice for radio, by the way. You do have a voice for radio. My mom was saying I have a face for radio. You have a voice for radio, so you do have a very good voice for it, though.
Okay, thank you. I probably have a face for radio too, so we share in that.
No, you don't.
Okay, thank you. I feel like there is a bit of a preconceived notion of the devil and him being evil, and like a preconceived notion of like demons and Satan and everything like that. So I'm just kind of curious. I know that you're working off of a Christian theology sort of perspective here. Out of your understanding of the Satan in Christianity, what makes him evil exactly? Can you point me to any kind of book, chapter, verse, or any kind of theological aspect that
we should probably clarify, because all he said is he can see him.
Right.
Hey, Joel, quickly, do you think Satan's evil?
I think he's evil.
Okay, so John's question stands then. Why do you think he is evil? We'll get to why you think he exists, but why do you think Satan is evil? What characteristics does he have?
Well, I said that in a questionary sense, meaning that I was repeating you. Do I think that?
Oh, okay.
I think that God makes all things into good. So let's just say that, right? But I think that he is in charge of the space that allows us to have free will, and much of our free will doesn't coincide with what God wants for us. Like I would say that sin, can I use that word sin, would be like missing the mark, right? So missing the mark that God said, we would call sin. If you would call that evil, he's in charge of that space. So I'd like to define my own terms, because I don't want to have a loaded word like evil. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm a big fan of, as the earlier caller demonstrated, I'm a big fan of defining our own terms. The terms don't matter, the concepts do. So if I understand you, you believe that there is this space of concepts or behavior or thoughts or activity where we are not living up to God's commands / expectations. There's a shorthand for that. We'll call it sin. And you said that Satan is in charge of that space. Is that what you said? Could you explain that?
Sure. He is that space, really. So he is in charge of it. Yeah, I would say, and that's a lot to do with where he's at in locale. Like this earth, I think is kind of where he was punished to. But like also in behavior, yeah. So because I don't think God really is in space that's not true, right? And anything that sin is not true. Anything that's
Okay. Well, before we move on to God, I think John had asked the original question. John, if you want to jump on this, of what characteristics did Joel answer that question? He's evil because he's in charge of sin, or he is sin.
Yeah, would that be accurate? Like the devil is evil. Sorry.
Yes, he allows us a space for free will, meaning that we could go, like, if there was like a 0 point, and then there was positive and negative, I would say he would be in the negative part, the dark part, you could say, the part.
Well, yeah, but
light.
I feel like that's more of you just classifying him as evil and not him actually doing anything that is evil, right? So is there anything that Satan actively does that makes him evil?
Well,
let's clarify. I'm gonna ask that question with a hold on, Joel. Joel, hold on. No. There's crosstalk sometimes. I want to agree with that question, but I also want to layer it above a presumption I think we're making. Do you agree that things are not good or evil, actions are? And then assuming that, yes, you agree that actions are the things that are evil, then we get to John's question of, okay, what actions has Satan taken that are evil?
I'll go with you on behaviors are evil. I got to say that I do think that entities can inhabit things, and in that sense, I think things could be evil, but it's not the things themselves really. It's kind of, our language doesn't really work with a lot of this stuff, but I'll go with you with behavior for now. That's fine.
Okay, so John's question then stands is, what has Satan done that demonstrates he is quote unquote evil, or what things have he done that are evil?
He defied God, right? So he defied God. He basically.
So not doing what God tells you to do is evil.
Well, not doing what God told him to do, which was.
So some people can defy God and not be evil?
But that was his fall from grace, right? We're talking about.
Let's get away from that story. You said he defied God. That's what was something that he did was evil. And I'm asking, okay, so anybody that defies God, that would be evil, right? Or wrong. Is that correct?
Right or wrong. Well, there's someone that, there's someone that lies. Are they a liar?
Well,
every other time.
Well, that's what we call a tautology. That's what I call a tautology.
That's what you're doing to me, right? That's what you're doing.
No, I'm not. Unless you're smuggling in the argument that says anything God tells you to do is by definition good. Is that your assertion?
No, you just said to me that if somebody does something that God doesn't want, are they evil?
Yes.
If they do one bad thing, are they evil? And I'm saying that's the same thing as saying if you lie one time, are you a liar? It's exactly the same thing, right?
Yeah. Okay, so answer the question.
Well, so if somebody does something bad one time, are they evil?
Yeah. Right.
They did an evil thing, and
right. I agree with that entirely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's a guy named Ray Comfort, an Australian preacher who used to do this on the street. He'd walk up and say, do you think you're a good person? And they say yes. And then he'd say, have you ever lied? Have you ever cheated? Have you ever stolen anything? Oh, so you think you're a good person? You're obviously not. You need God. That was the argument. So I'm just sort of turning that around on you and on Satan. So Satan did this evil thing that you think is an evil thing. Does that make him an evil person or an entity? Or did he just do an evil thing?
He did an evil thing, and he's an evil person. So
John, you want to re-ask your question?
No, wait a minute. I understand. I'm not as silly as some of the callers. I get what you're saying. You're trying to pinpoint it as somebody. The behavior is the evil thing. So he did an evil thing. Is he evil? And then I'm saying no. Well, no and yes. So they both can be true, right? He can be done an evil thing and be evil. Is that true? Would you agree to that?
I don't understand what it means for a person or a thing to be evil. That's the part I don't know. I don't know. Do you understand that, Josh? John? Hold on. Hold on. You've been talking. Let John ask the original question. I want to get it back to him. I don't understand what it means for a person to be evil. In fact, I don't even really understand the term evil. I understand moral good and moral bad. But
yes,
go ahead. Let's let Godless finish his line.
Yeah. So, I mean, as far like, I feel like if you're proclaiming somebody to be bad or evil in this instance, you're making a claim that their general behavior is to be that way, to where you could generalize, you know, their behavior as like, you know, that's what you expect out of that person,
but then
right?
all people would be evil, though. I mean, you know,
and all people would be good.
True.
I've not met a single person that hasn't done at least a few good things in their life.
True, but there's a very good argument that none of those things were done for the sake of doing them. You know, they're done for the sake of making themselves feel better at the very least. But
that's an Ayn Rand philosophy. We could get into that, but
I think we expect God to be good.
Well, Joel, I do want to kind of stress test your criteria for some action being evil.
You never defined evil. Aren't you supposed to define evil when you ask me the question? You said you asked me the question. Can you define evil?
No, none of us have defined it. But you said that that God is not evil. So why don't you define what you mean by evil?
Let's start over. You asked me the original question. Let's start with that, and I'm going to be as direct as I can with you. Can you ask me the question and define your terms, and then I'll go from there. I'm so sorry.
Oh, that's no problem. The call notes say you want to talk about what they believe and why. And I asked you, what do you believe in why? And
forget the call notes. You asked me a question. God just asked me a question. You said what? Right. And you wanted me to answer.
You asserted that Satan was evil, and he said, what demonstrates that he's evil? Basically.
No, I'm sorry. The original question was, do you think that Satan is evil? Is that right? Do you think that Satan is evil? Okay. Now, can you define your terms?
No, I can't. I don't know if John can. Go ahead.
You cannot. Well, okay.
So, Joel, how for the purposes of this conversation, I would define evil as being something that's so tremendously bad there is no context or no extenuating circumstances that can rescue the action. It is considered bad regardless of any context that could be proposed as to redeem it. So it's like something that's beyond the pale, something that is so horrible in action, like the previous caller, Muhammad.
Go ahead then. Fine, that's perfect. Now ask the question for the callers.
Okay, what action did Satan do that makes him evil?
I thought the first question was, do you think he's evil? In that regard, do I think that Satan is evil? I would say no. And by the way you define evil, I would say no, because God can make all things good. Okay.
All right. So why do you believe that there is a God?
All right. Can you define God?
Do you believe that there is a God?
Can you define God for me?
Do you believe that there is a supernatural being of any sort that any person on this planet would reasonably call God?
Yes.
Okay. What do you believe in that aspect, and why? Let's start with what you believe.
I'm a Christian, so I believe in Jesus as our Savior, and pretty much the Bible, as it's written, with the exception of some things, but for the most part, the Bible. That's why I believe it. Why do I believe it? Well, I asked God a long time ago. I was always a kind of an amateur. By the way, I've always been really scared to call into your show.
You're doing great.
You guys are spectacular people, honestly, and I really thank you for what you do, because you do give honest space for people to come in and explain, why they believe what they believe, which Christians are supposed to be able to do. So thank you very much for that, and I do appreciate it.
I appreciate that. And I do like the fact that you are answering and you're thinking about your answers and are willing to say, well, wait a second, we need to define that first. That's a real conversation, because we're not here to do gotchas or create clips. We're here to have a conversation. So you're a Christian. There's variations on Christianity, 10,000 different sects and all that, but we'll just say Christian. You believe either that works or faith will get you into heaven, and that there's a God, and God is related to good and evil in the ways that you've talked about. Why do you believe that?
Okay, so I asked God probably when I was in my early teens, if you're real, can you show me this? Because it's kind of hard to believe some of the stuff that you're saying, you're claiming, basically. I'm speaking to him. And it wasn't until a couple years ago that he gave me the answer based on my lifestyle that I was living. I guess the answer was to see Satan. And so I'm able to...
How did you receive this answer? I didn't quite audibly hear you. What was the answer, and how did you receive it?
Well, the answer was he showed me Satan. He let me see Satan. So and that was his way of saying that he's real, because I know that he's the opposite of something, And so for me, from my own experience, right? Because why do you believe it is always a personal experience. If you had an experience where, though you've been on this show all this time, you had an experience tonight that you thought was God, and then you had to come back and explain why you think that there's a God, and you say, well, I had this experience, well, then they'd have at you, right? They'd rip you to pieces based on that, because, it's not provable or whatever. But I don't think that God's something that's so much provable as a personal thing, right? That's his connectedness to everybody,
Joel,
the beauty of it. Go ahead.
So Joel, you say that you were you had this experience with God where your actions or how you were being was condemned by God, and and he showed you Satan as, I guess, an embodiment of evil. That's what I kind of took away from that. Am I on the mark with that?
You're on the mark, and he's not what you'd expect at all.
Well, I'm gonna go back to that other question. I think that's right, John. We asked you at the top of the show. Just to clarify, do you visually see him like you'd see a cup of water in front of you, or a person standing on the corner, or are we talking about some other meaning of the word see?
Not at all. Not at all. Great question. It's very hard to explain because I've never experienced it before, and there's not a lot to compare it to, right? So I'm going to do my best, but it's more, if I would say, it's almost like another realm, right? It's really hard to explain, but the stuff that you're wanting to me to answer for, like the cup of water, is it an object? Definitely not that. Definitely not a thing, right? Definitely not a thing. Is he no thing? Definitely not, right? He's like the spirit, man. He's a spirit. It's crazy.
Okay, I'm going to list off the five. Hold on. We're gonna jump in real quickly. I'm going to list off the 5 senses that human beings have. These are methods that we have to detecting things around us. The only way we know to do this. We have sight, we have hearing, we have taste, we have smell, and we have touch. I'm going to ask you for in a loop. Can I see Satan? Can I hear Satan? Can I taste Satan? Can I smell Satan? Can I touch Satan? If I'm in your place, are any of those applicable, or are you detecting Satan through some other means other than those 5 senses?
I would say sight is the closest one that I would say.
It's close, but it's not the same, because you wouldn't see it like you see a guy on the corner, or I see my mother.
It's not a thing, right? It's not a thing. So
do you use your eyes when you see Satan, or are you seeing it some other way?
I can close my eyes and see him.
Isn't that a warning sign?
I can close my eyes and see him. I can open my eyes.
Isn't that a warning sign?
A warning sign of what?
What do you think? What would you say to anybody else who came to you and said, you should believe that this exists because when I close my eyes, I see it?
I didn't say that.
I'm not saying that you did. I would say, what would you say to somebody who said that?
I would say that you should check yourself, because number one, you might be seeing things that are not there. And number two, you shouldn't ask anybody to believe things based on your experience.
I agree with that, and you haven't asked us to do that, and I'm not accusing you of that. I just wanted to get to you where you were there. So you can put yourself in our shoes. Godless, I think, I don't want to speak for you, but when I hear I can see him when I close my eyes, that to me sort of raises red flags. What do you think, Godless?
Yeah, I mean, it does definitely raise a bit of red flags, because I mean, I take it to mean that you are actively being fed a vision of him, as opposed to just remembering like some kind of dream or other state that you were in. Is that correct?
I would. That's correct. And I wouldn't say that I would fed to him in the sense that I mean, yes, fed to him is fine, but I feel like I agreed to this before I was born. Right, but I guess it doesn't really matter. So fed it is fine. Fine.
That okay, so that's fine. Now the thing that I was kind of wanting to harp on here is the whole idea of you being shown Satan and being shown something that's opposite to God, which is and correct me if I'm wrong on any of this. I'm trying to steel man your position on it. You were shown a vision of Satan, so that God could show you, oh, this is the evil, this is the opposite of me. Am I on the right path so far?
I think that's why I just know that I can see him. I don't answer anything I don't know, right? I just know that I can see him, and
I get you.
And seeing him, meaning that I just want to add one more thing to this about my experience about it. I can see him. I can ask him any question I want, right? And he will answer, right? It doesn't mean.
Do you ask him vocally?
This was the mind blowing part when I realized that I can ask him in my mind without talking at all, and he'll answer me the same way, and just on cue. Just.
I think that should be mind blowing because that's very abnormal, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It is extremely abnormal.
Can I propose a? Well, Joel, can I propose a hypothetical for you, and you tell me if this is Satan activity, like evil activity, or if it's holy good activity? Can we run this exercise real quick?
Yeah, I'll try.
Okay, all right. So let's say that you're a soldier in the U.S. Army or any army out there. Let's say you're a soldier and you're in a foreign country, and you go into a city and you utterly destroy it. You unalive everybody in the city, but amongst those inhabitants that you haven't unalived, you notice a beautiful woman. And so you decide that you're going to forcefully take that beautiful woman and you're going to bring her back home, and you're going to keep her in your house for a month. And at that point, you're then going to marry her, whether she wants you to or not. Now, would you consider that to be godly things? Like, is that something that God would command, or is that something that you think would be inspired by Satan?
I would think that that's something that is probably written in the Bible in some way, and I think that if I were to do it in these days, that it would be from Satan.
I want to key in on a phrase you just said. Did you just say, if I were to do it these days?
Yeah, if I were to do it these days, like, the things.
If you had done it 2,000 years ago, would it be morally okay?
Well, that's a hard question.
No, it's not. Right? But go ahead, pull that thread.
Well, I think you're using the times that we're in now to judge other times.
So morality is relative to the time you're in. The things that are some things that are bad now were okay just because 2,000 years ago.
Well, things that are done now will be considered archaic 1,000 years from now, right?
Some won't.
So
some won't.
Some
right?
won't, and some will.
We have already learned as a species.
What kind of
hold on, Joel. We've given you a lot of room. Let me go. So
I think it's a fair question.
It is a fair question because I'm going to propose an answer here. So let me get to it, right? So I agree with you that some of the things we do now will probably be viewed as immoral in the future. And I hope you agree with me that some things that were done 2,000 years ago or 5,000 years ago when we had the Old Testament were immoral then and immoral now, and we are considering them immoral now. There's multiple explanations for why that's true and multiple definitional things that explain that. And that's where the conversation is. So I'm not trying to shut you off. I'm just trying to get to that point. Either things are moral or immoral, and we as a species learn about morality as we grow up as human beings, and more things we recognize as bad or good. So our view gets more nuanced and subtle and advances. Or we're just creatures of fashion. Whatever is fashionably okay to murder, then it's okay to murder. And it is not just we think it's okay to murder. It is actually okay to murder if many people think that it's okay. I'm arguing that it's the former, that it was always wrong morally, no matter if people, it's kind of like saying everybody used to believe the earth was flat, therefore the earth was flat. That's not my argument. My argument is everybody used to think that the earth was flat. I'm going to mute you, Joel, if you won't let me finish this explanation. You've been a great caller. Just listen to me, okay? This is a great analogy that just sprung into my head. Everybody used to think the earth was flat. Does that mean that the earth was flat, or does that mean everybody was wrong? Everybody was wrong. Everybody used to think that slavery and raping women was okay. What, does that mean that it was okay, or does it mean that everybody was wrong? Do you get my point?
I do. I get your point.
Okay, so... Godless's question, you sort of caught onto it of, is that more Satan-like or is that more God-like? And you said, I bet that's something that was written in the Bible that if I did it nowadays would be wrong. Would you like to amend that? Would it have been wrong 2,000 years ago if you did it?
No, I don't want to amend that. I hope
so it would have been morally okay to take a prisoner of war and sexually assault her and force her into a marriage against her will.
No, I don't think that that's okay. That's obviously the answer. That's only going to be.
So that would have been immoral 2,000 years ago as well, correct?
That would have been immoral 2,000 years ago. Yes.
Okay, go ahead, John. Sorry.
Well, yeah, I was just going to ask, because that is something that God commanded, Deuteronomy 21:10-14. That's part of God's commandments, that is to guide them. And it's the same commandments that's affirmed by Jesus in Matthew 5:17-19, for which there is a repetitive thing, and in Luke as well. So it's done twice in the Gospels that reaffirms these Old Testament laws that are given by God to Moses as well as the other people in there. And so given that God is the one that issued these, that's the mark that God, playing back on to the beginning of our conversation, that's the mark that God has set. Right. So by not doing that in war that God has commanded, this is the behavior that God has commanded, has allowed you to do. So by not doing that in war, it seems to me like you would have to say that you're committing an evil action by not adhering to that mark that God has given. Would that be correct?
Well, no, that wouldn't be correct. That wouldn't be correct at all, because this is the problem with taking one era and moving it and applying it to another era. Right?
Is God constrained by cultural norms?
Do I have any time to talk? Do I have any?
We have given you so much time to talk, Joel.
A lot of talking.
Joel, we have given you we gave you compliments on how great you were. We've given you time to talk.
You guys are taking 80%.
This is a back and forth, and if you say something where we need clarifications, we as the hosts are going to ask for clarifications. So please answer John's question.
Well, yeah, Joel. So just to give you a little bit more information here, I'll give you your time to respond to this, and I promise you. But it seems what it's coming across to me is you're saying that God either changes or God is compressed or constrained. Sorry, God is constrained by the culture that He is talking to. So His commands are not meant for all time, which is actually contradictory to what the Bible says, because the Bible says that God's law is a perfect law meant for forever. That's somewhere in Psalms. But God says that, right? And so it seems to me like what you're saying is that God is constrained by the culture that he's either speaking to or the culture that exists at the time. And that seems to be a violation of his omnipotence, his all-powerful nature.
No,
And if God is constrained by that, then it seems like God is somehow driven by human need, at least the laws of
you guys are
God.
good. You guys are good. You guys are really good. No, God's not constrained at all. We're limited. We're limited on what we can and what God can apply to us at any given time, and we grow hopefully. But I gotta say, going back to what you said, you guys give these two options, and I was saying or, and you kept going, and you said you threatened to
Give us
put
the
me on
third
mute.
option.
Well, in this example, right, we get worse. We don't get better. We don't learn
Sure,
over time.
absolutely.
We get worse.
We might get
That's the
worse.
third
Are
one,
you?
right?
So that begs the question.
I want that to be one example of
Hey,
many that you
Joel.
times that you do that. Well, don't get offended.
Joel, I'm not offended. I'm following up. I just agreed with you. You're right. We could get worse. We could move into the future, learn more about morality, learn more about suffering, and realize, you know what? It's great to rape people. It is morally okay. We could get worse, right? No, I'm supporting you. I am saying we could do that, right? As a people.
Right. Okay.
Right. So, do you agree that what we think at any given time is not directly related to some constant truth? Do you agree that what we think about the earth being round or flat does not affect whether or not the earth is round or flat? That's my question.
I think that's true, yes.
Okay. So what we think about morality today, you are arguing, and I would agree with you, it does not necessarily have any effect on as to whether or not something is actually good or bad, or whether or not there's even an actual objective good or bad at all in the universe, right? What we think about it is irrelevant, right?
Yes, I would say that's true. I would, yeah.
Then how can you know anything about the nature of God or Satan and goodness and evil?
And how could any one person know?
That's my question.
Well, yeah. Okay. Well, I believe that he puts it into our hearts, pretty much, And
but couldn't it be Satan deceiving you?
It could be Satan deceiving you. Yeah, it could be. I think he attacks more the mind, But spending time with Jesus is like knowing him, right? So, God says to put him first, right? And pretty much that's it, that's it. And I don't.
Who said to put him first?
I think the Bible says to put God first.
And how do you know that is true?
How do I know that is true that it said it, or how do I know that it's true that he wants it, or how do I know that it's true that?
So you're saying, I believe, if I want to paraphrase, I don't want to put words in your mouth.
It's definitely true. True.
So let's back up to that. Let's get to the final question of the show, like the big question, which is, why do you believe there's a God?
Well, because I've seen Satan.
Okay. So that would lead me to believe in Satan, right? Not necessarily God.
Yeah, well, not me, because that meant something to me, right? This goes back to the personal experience. He showed me, right? Showing you would mean something else. If I were to ask you the question, what would be evidence for God for you?
Mm-hmm.
You probably wouldn't answer that. What would be enough evidence for you? Sure, answer that, please. Tell the world, what would be evidence to you that there's a God?
Well, if we're assuming the Christian God, the evidence would be probably, I don't know, because God is so mysterious. No one can know God's ways, but God would know. So he would give me that evidence, whatever that was. God would be powerful enough if he wanted to.
The question to me, that sounds like avoiding.
It's an honest answer. Are you going to say I'm lying? I really don't know. I don't know. Give me a scenario. Give me a scenario where you think I should take that evidence as proof of not only a God, but the Christian God of the Bible.
That's not evidence for that. That's not evidence.
I asked you a question. Could you please give me a scenario that you think I should accept as evidence that the God of the Bible is true?
No, I couldn't, because you can't even give me a scenario.
You're accusing me of lying. You're accusing me of lying.
Wait a minute.
I'm going to mute you and explain this, because you like reacting more than you like answering at this point. You're accusing me of lying when I honestly say, I don't know what would convince me that there's a God. I've thought about this a lot. I've thought about this for 30 years. I've had that conversation. What would convince you? Dozens, if not hundreds of times. And the honest answer is, I don't know. But I'm not the one claiming there's a God or there's not a God. Other people tell me things, and I am convinced or not convinced of their claims based on the evidence they present. To date, I haven't been convinced that there's a God. I haven't had any experiences that people who call in and say, I had this personal experience that's proof for me, but not for you. I haven't had one of those experiences. In my youth, I did try to pray to a God and genuinely give myself to God when I was in an Episcopalian school. That didn't work. So I really don't know what the evidence was, but I'm pretty sure that the God that most Christians believe in would believe that their God is powerful enough to convince me if they wanted to. And they're probably pretty sure that most Christians would believe that a genuine person who sincerely has tried to figure this all out and just hasn't been convinced is not doing anything wrong. Do you disagree with any of that?
No.
Okay. I don't know. John, have you had a similar trial and error test?
You said you're a liar, though. That wasn't cool. I never said you lied.
Rewind the tape. We'll move past it.
Okay.
I do know that if God does exist, he would be the one to know that, what would convince me. So, like, well, I don't know exactly what would convince me, other than, just empirical evidence that leaves no other reasonable explanation other than a supernatural wizard that really cares about, everything I do in my alone time. Right. I feel like that God, if he is omniscient, he would definitely know what would convince me, and I just have not been convinced yet. And so,
right.
Yeah.
And do you think like the callers? Do you think like the callers that you say you show evidence after evidence after evidence, and they still deny it? You put so much evidence, let's say, and they still don't believe it. Do you think that could be what you're doing? Possibly. It's like, for instance, when we talk about,
I don't understand the question. Honestly, I don't understand what you just said.
Well,
so could you repeat it and explain it to me again?
Sure. Do you think that you're doing what you accuse the callers of doing when you apply what you call anti-evidence to their claim? Or
I don't call anything anti-evidence.
Okay, come on.
I don't. Right? That's not a word that I've ever heard of in my life, okay? So what I do is I ask questions. Somebody calls up and makes a claim, and I ask questions, right? How did this happen? What does this happen? What's your reasoning? Then I try to see if there's any logical fallacies in their reasoning or their methodology. And if there are logical fallacies, then I point them out and say, this seems to be a logical fallacy, or there seems to be insufficient evidence to convince you of that this is true. Why are you convinced? That's the conversation.
Right. And no matter how much evidence you give against their claim, right, that they still refuse to believe it. You were saying it takes years. I think you were saying earlier, it takes years for people sometimes to convert to atheism or whatever it is, or
not convert
their beliefs.
But I mean, I feel like what we do is we appeal to basic logic in order to convince people away from bad arguments, and we don't have any preconceived notion as to whether or not they're just going to up and leave their faith. We just hope to present good counter arguments.
And we do the same methodology on Truth Wanted. I've been on Truth Wanted, and we'll take calls about Bigfoot and crystals healing people and UFOs. It's not just God claims. We're all about a methodology and hearing about people's reasons. And so we can hey, is there anything out there that is convincing? So it's not unique to God. It's just a good way of living. I want to believe as many true things and as few false things as possible, because if I believe false things are true, I can harm myself or others. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. It does make sense. It seems to me though, like, you know, you've taken this claim. The default is that there's no God, right? The default is
that the person making the claim has the burden of proof to establish it, just like in a courtroom where we think something's really important. We put the duty on the prosecutor. We don't just assume you're guilty because the neighborhood says you're guilty. We want people to come to court and present evidence. That's how humans have determined is the best way not to get scammed or tricked or do something wrong to somebody. Don't you want evidence of something before you believe it?
Yes, but I think if the evidence, yes, I do think that that's true. But some people look at the world as evidence, right? Like you're saying, like, you know, I hate to use this one because it's so badly used, but you know, the fact that
I know where you're going, Joe. Go ahead, say it.
The fact that the world that we shouldn't be here, basically, that the world is so rare that, you know, blah blah blah, all these things would need to happen. Okay. And you'd say, well, that's not evidence. That's just, you know.
I would disagree. Can I point out that you're putting words in my mouth a little bit?
Okay.
So
I don't like to do
I'm
that.
coming at it from a technical definition of evidence. So under the law, evidence is any fact or piece of material or whatever that would make a claim more or less likely true or false in any degree. So I might go to trial and I might say, I want to, you know, hey, what's your hobby, witness? And they might say, I'm a tennis player. And the opposing person says, I object. There's no reason that the person's hobby has any relevance on his bank fraud scheme. And then I might say, well, you know, there's a statistical probability that people who are in nightclubs, or excuse me, who are in tennis clubs and have to pay those fees are going to be slightly harder to earn money because it's expensive to be these clubs. So it's more likely to go to motive a little bit that he might have more motive to rob the bank or do the embezzling or whatever. It is evidence. It's just not sufficient evidence, right? So I think almost anything is evidence, and I think that word gets used incorrectly. That's why I always use the phrase sufficient evidence.
So like a painting, like that's not sufficient evidence that somebody painted it. Is that what you're saying?
I think a painting is combined with the fact that I've seen paintings before. I've seen people painting paintings. I've seen myself, I have tried painting. I've seen paint supply stores. I've seen all of these things. I've gone to museums and seen paintings. I've seen people who told me the history of the paints. I've seen people frame paintings and unframe paintings. I've got a mountain of evidence that establishes that paintings exist, and as do
if none of that was true,
right? You found a rock, right, on a beach, right?
No,
hold on. Hey, Joel.
I found a painting. Come on, this is a great point. I found a painting, right, and none of what you said was true. You didn't know what a painting was. You didn't call it a painting. Would you say that somebody did that, or would you say that it just happened to be like that?
We don't know. The answer is I don't know. If I've never seen a painting, the concept of painting doesn't exist in the world, and we're all cavemen and we have no idea what it is. I might think it's lunch.
I feel like that's the earth. Like you might think it's the earth. Or you might think that somebody painted it. You might think that somebody did it. I feel like that's what the earth is.
Joel. Yeah, but Joel, listen, we have natural explanations for how the earth could form the way that it did. And this is analogous to the painting. Hold on. I'll let you talk. This is analogous to the painting thing because we have a natural explanation for the painting. Somebody had to paint it. A sentient being had to have been there to do the painting.
Maybe 99.99999% sure that happening by chance is impossible. Right.
And
won't sit here and say it's impossible, unlike some other people.
I believe the point. So I believe the burden of proof is on the 0.1, not the 99.99. Right?
Yes, but you're ignoring the evidence. I just went through a whole thing of evidence that makes it a 0.1.
No.
And then you said, well, what if none of that evidence existed? What would happen? And I said, well, if I'm a caveman, I've never seen a painting before, I might think it's lunch. Just like animals, when we put a mirror in a jungle, you've maybe seen these videos where people go put mirrors in jungles and these animals have never seen them before. They don't know what the fuck they are. They think they're seeing another cat.
I said that.
Okay, so I don't think we can put ourselves into the mindset of a world where we've never seen paintings. That's why I asked, what about a rock on a beach?
I said that for effect, though, right? Because we do know that's why we said it's rare. because we do know about all these things, right? We do know that there's a frame, and the paint store and all this stuff. That's all the stuff that goes along with making it rare, right? That's why we call it a rarity, right? Because we know all
I'm not
this
sure
stuff.
what is
It's
rare in
not
this
like it.
comment. Like paintings are very common.
Well,
I'm
come on,
confused.
you knew, but you knew what I was talking about. I'm comparing this to the Earth, right? That we're very, it's very.
And to yes, got it.
very-
Okay.
it's a very
So
small chance.
to
Okay,
John's
that's my
point, if you go and study the literature, I think this is what you're making, John. We have the painters, the painting, the art supply store, the canvases. We have that much evidence taking us all the way back to the Big Bang as to how this all happened. We know this. We have an answer, and it doesn't involve God. Is that what you were saying, John?
Yeah, we don't have a need for God to explain those things. So, like, while it's the possibility, which is what
How
cross-examiner.
did that jump from there? How did that jump from there? I'm so sorry, but how did that jump from there? Are all the viewers going to assume that that's true? How did that jump from that to that?
Are you asserting that we don't have
God.
well-established evidence as to what happened after the Big Bang till now?
I do agree to that.
Okay, so that's what I'm
does that have to
saying.
do with
That's the evidence we have. It's not just we don't just look at the Earth and go, "Oh, a miracle." Have no idea how this happened. We have tons of evidence as to how the Earth was formed.
Right. So Joel,
Right.
What we've observed, what we've observed outside of our Earth, through astronomy and other sciences, is that giant gas clouds will collapse when they are hit by a shock wave from a collapsing star, and when these gas clouds, these huge gas clouds collapse, they eventually collect, and using static forces, the particles will clump together in localized areas, and those clumps will get bigger and bigger and bigger until gravity takes over, and then gravity takes over and still collects all these debris and dust. Now, once this giant gas cloud, this trillions and trillions of tons of particles, eventually coalesce one into a star that forms due to large gravitational forces that causes fusion to happen, and that causes light and everything like that. The remaining dust particles around that star start to coalesce into planets, and planets that are a certain amount of distance away from that star that are in what's called the Goldilocks zone form, and they can form atmospheres. They can form in different kinds of ways that then progress into larger and larger planets that then can support life.
And holding all this in, and I understand, and holding all this energy together is what?
Gravity.
No.
Small and strong nuclear forces.
That's not right.
Electromagnetic forces. All of those things.
You're
Dr. Joel, please tell me what's the correct. Is it God? Is it the wizard?
We'll first say that you don't know, right? Is that true?
No, I do know. But so
Are you literally asking what is holding particles together inside of planets? Because that's what we're talking about.
You understand dark energy?
I understand dark energy, yes.
Okay. Well,
I mean, I understand it as in I know what it is, but I don't think anybody on the planet understands it to the point of similar understanding of how to make a bicycle.
I think you're right. I think there's a lot that we don't understand, and it doesn't mean that there's a God. It doesn't mean that there's a God. That's not evidence directly that there's a God. But what I'm saying is, like, there's a lot that we're going to be figuring out, and I don't understand how that has anything to do with there being or not being a God. All the stuff that you did.
You were the one who said, "Look at the Earth, dude."
You gave the look at the trees argument. Joel. Like, come on, man.
All right, Joel.
Wait a minute.
You have been a lot of fun.
Thank you. Thank you. You too.
Appreciate
I love you
it.
guys. You guys are great.
Thank you for calling. We do have other callers to get to, but that's a good note to end on.
It's not as funny as you think. It's not as funny as you think.
Okay. All right. Call back again. Bye-bye.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Oh, boy. I don't know what any of this has to do with God.
I thought that was a pretty funny thing. Like, I don't know, that was pretty comedic.
Oh my gosh.
I never really understood the whole idea that God is necessary for physical processes to happen.
Yeah. I don't know that that's what he's making. I think in asking what's holding that all together, he was speaking figuratively, and He was hinting at he was looking for an I don't know. Like, I readily admit, I don't think anybody understands everything about dark matter. We still don't have a unified theory of physics as far as the four forces go. There's a lot we don't know, but that doesn't mean God exists. We used to think the Earth was flat. Now we know a bajillion times more. So it's really a God of the gaps argument. We don't know this, therefore God.
Right.
I think that's where he was going. I don't know. What were your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I feel like that's incredibly. My camera has apparently decided to die real quick.
It's okay. It's a permanent kind of eye roll.
Right. But I think that I'm trying to fix it.
No problem.
I think that where he was going to go with it was simply that, God is necessary to hold things together and everything like that. And I'm not exactly sure why my camera has.
Well, while you're fiddling with that, I'm going to jump on. We have a few more calls. We're near the end of time. I do want to get them on. They've been patiently waiting. So I'm going to jump to Will, no pronouns given, from Canada, wants to address the chat question for the week, which was God's evil, change our mind, sort of provocative prompt. Will, do I have you right? You want to talk about whether or not there is a God and whether or not that God is evil?
Yeah.
Okay. What's up with you? What do you believe? Why do you believe it? And what does that have to do with an evil God?
Well, it's not like it's about all the things of God, right? But I would consider myself a Catholic heretic. And I came to God like in 2019, but it's kind of personal. I don't really like to talk about it.
Okay. Well, you said you wanted to address the chat question, and the chat question was, God is evil, change our mind. So change our mind. Why? Which God are you talking about, and why is that God not evil?
Which God that I'm talking about? Well, first I would say like the Trinitarian God, the Trinity.
Okay. The one depicted in the Bible, specifically, possibly the Catholic version of the Bible? Generally speaking,
yeah.
that God?
Yeah. God,
Okay.
God, Jesus Christ, God, Holy Spirit, God, Father. Yeah,
Understood. Okay.
Yeah.
Why is that God not evil?
I would say he is misunderstood.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I test that real quick?
Okay.
Okay. So there's a passage in Exodus where it stipulates that a father can sell their daughter into sexual slavery. And you seem to think that I'm just misunderstanding that. And I'm just wondering, can you clarify that one for me?
It is said that it's a commandment directly from God?
Yes.
I think you talked about it earlier, but like my point of view on this is like God is working with people with the times that they're in.
God's meeting people where they are. God is a political gradualist, right?
What is a political gradualist?
A political gradualist is somebody who realizes they can't get what needs to be done right away, because they got to deal with people and make deals, and sort of eventually, if we position ourselves and everything right, eventually we'll get this country or this state or this county to where it needs to be. But I can't come in and just dictate things, or otherwise the people will revolt. Is that what you're saying?
Some kind of way, right? But like...
So why did God say... no gay sex, and you can't eat shrimp as just absolute laws? Shrimp was very popular. Why did he come in and say, can't do that, absolute no gradualism there? But when he says you can sell your daughter into sexual slavery, that was because he felt like he couldn't come in and say, don't sell people, don't sell your daughters. That would have been too much. Is that what you're saying?
Right. It's about no gay sex and no eating shrimp. Look, I'm not going to say like I understand why God does things or not, right?
Well,
Can I reframe it? Go ahead, John.
Well, I was just going to say, maybe I can ask you this more direct question. If you were in a governorship, or let's say you're president, would you ever, maybe king, let's say king, because that one I think is a bit more analogous here. Let's say you're a king. Would you ever make a law that says that fathers can sell their daughters as a sexual slave to another man, or another man's son? Would you ever make an edict or a law that allows that in your kingdom? Would you do that?
First, it would depend in which time period. It would depend on context.
No, not time period. You right now. You yourself right now. You yourself right now.
Or the economy or anything like that.
Will.
Wait a second. The economy. What does the fucking economy have to do with selling your daughter?
John asked you right now, would you pass that law sitting here today? Boom. We've just given you the power. We've just given you the power to control all of the universe. Would you tell people on Earth it's okay to sell your daughters into sexual slavery?
Maybe if I was in Abu Dhabi or something like that, but
what?
You're a bad person then.
But right now in Quebec,
no. Hold on. You're shifting. You're changing it, right? I'm saying you yourself right now, your person, not like anywhere.
No,
you would not.
No.
Okay, God does. Why are you better than your God?
I don't think God's allows it now. No.
He allowed it. Is God? You believe in the
So God changed his mind?
Yeah.
Humans did with the help of
God.
God
change his mind?
No.
This is okay.
So he allowed it 2,000 years ago.
Yeah.
So he allows it now?
With the people at the time, right? You're working with the people at the time.
Right.
This is the same.
So he's a political gradualist. He could. Are you saying he's working with the people at the time? As in, if I came in and said slavery is wrong, okay, let's take the 10 Commandments, right? I think you and I can probably improve the 10 Commandments right now. 3 of the verses are, "I'm a jealous God, obey me, don't go to other gods," right? That's 3 of them. There's really only 4 that have rules of don't kill, don't murder, don't covet, don't rob, don't lie. Couldn't we take one of those 10 commandments that said, don't worship another God, or I am the Lord God, fear me type of God? Couldn't we take that one of those 3 and change it to, you shall not own people as property? Wouldn't that have been the best rule that would make the 10 commandments infinitely better? If from day one, the 10 commandments said, don't own slaves.
But this, okay, I don't want.
Would that have been better for humanity?
Sure. Yes. But
okay.
I don't support slavery of any kind, right?
I'm not saying you do. I'm just asking. I'm just pointing out what John is pointing out, which is your God in the Old Testament endorsed slavery, and in the New Testament says the old laws shall go unchanged. Not a jot or tittle of the law shall change until all things have been accomplished. So your Old Testament God said, not only is slavery okay, but if they're foreigners, you can own them for life. You can give them to your kids. You can have sex with them. That's what the Old Testament says. Yeah. And then you come to us and say, God's good. And that's where John has his question. Go ahead, John.
Well, I was just going to say, and then you're telling us that God is this sort of, what did you call it there?
Political gradualist.
Political gradualist when it comes to selling your daughter into sexual slavery. But immediately he could be like, yo, guys, no butt sex, all right?
Don't kill people. Don't steal. Don't covet.
Well, not even don't
covet.
It's not even don't kill people. It's don't kill people, asterisk, unless I tell you to stab babies and children in the face, and then it's okay, right? So like God is a progressive gradualist when it comes to sexual slavery and regular chattel slavery and all that, but also don't wear mixed fabrics, and you got to have guardrails on top of your roofs. Okay? And like that's just.
And I'll go back to the covet. Like that one of the 10 commandments is don't be jealous of your neighbor. Like, how is that? I mean, it's not like only do it when it's reasonable if he has a really nice car. Like, it's not a gradualist thing at all. It's literally don't do it, full stop. So he's not a political gradualist on don't be jealous, but somehow he couldn't muster up the willpower to say, you know what, earlier, don't own slaves.
You talked about it earlier with Joel, I think the name it was,
Yep.
it is. Like there's something right now that in the future will be immoral, right, but things that would still be moral as we have them today, right? So kind of.
So what you're arguing is it was morally good back then because people thought it was good back then.
Yeah, the people think. I thought. Right?
So what people
not
think?
Not good, but maybe not good, right? But more like in utility kind of way.
So you're a utilitarian.
I don't know what is that.
Basically, do whatever. It's okay to murder if that ends up into the net positive for the most people type of thing. I don't think you really want to make that argument, do you? It's okay to torture this one little girl and keep her locked in a room if everybody else can go look at that little girl and go, wow, I'm really lucky. This makes me really happy to be in this society. You wouldn't want to torture and imprison a little girl just to make everybody a little happier, right?
No, but no. But I don't like it's kind of complex for me.
Here's why it's complex. We got other callers. John, I'd love for you to chime in on this as well. But here's why I think it's complex for you. You know that slavery is wrong. You know that it was wrong 2,000 years ago. You wouldn't want to be a slave 2,000 years ago. You wouldn't want to be my slave today under the laws that were in effect under the Old Testament. You surely wouldn't want that. You know it's wrong. But you can't say it's wrong because saying it's wrong creates this cognitive dissonance in your head where you're like, I know it's wrong and it was always wrong, but this script that I'm reading from, this Bible thing, says that God said it was okay. How do I resolve those two things? And your brain is sort of doing these backflips to say, well, maybe there was some sort of consensus and God was a gradualist and he couldn't dictate this rule even though he dictated 600 other rules. That's what's going on. What are your thoughts, John?
Okay.
Well, yeah. So I don't really understand restricting God in the sense that is being restricted because it seems to violate the traditional view of God, like the Trinitarian view as well as the triomni view. I would assume that you would think that God is omnibenevolent, omniscient, and
omnipotent.
Omnipotent, yeah. So, I mean, if he is omnipotent, then he definitely has the power to make the small caveat of don't rape women, or don't own slaves. Like he can make those small caveats. And all throughout the Old Testament, and you'd have to agree with me on this, Will, that throughout the Old Testament, God has laid down his commandments, 613 of them. And God expects the Israelites to follow every single one of them. And when they don't, he perceives that as them rejecting him, and he has to punish them as some form of justice. And he does this several times throughout the Old Testament. It's like a running thing. You could plot it on a line. Like the Israelites, they fall away from God, and then God gets mad at them. He punishes them in one way or another, and then they come back in line with God for a little bit, and then they fall out again. It's like a fucking sine wave, right? Of all these troughs and everything like that, of them falling away from God. So God definitely expects them to follow on and do what he asked them to do, and when they don't, they are getting punished. So with him having that expectation, there's no reason for him to be like, I'm not going to put don't own slaves, don't institute sexual slavery, don't kill children ever. Like he could put those things in his top 10 of the commandments that he gives, but he didn't. He never issued those particular statements.
Can I say something real quick?
Sure, Will.
Honestly, I made a mistake. I don't think I'm properly equipped to answer this question. Like God is evil, right? And I think it's evident. Because I didn't really know what to engage with, right? The question. So
That's an incredibly honest answer, dude. I really appreciate that. We're coming at you having read all of these passages. We sort of have ammo in our bandoliers ready to shoot, and you're being very honest with us, and I really do appreciate that. You should be applauded for that. I do think that John was on the right track bringing all of this up. This is sort of the demonstration that either you really haven't read your Bible and you haven't thought about it in the context of, wait a second,
Yep.
all of these laws are in here, and it doesn't say don't own slaves. In fact, it says the opposite. You can own slaves, and you can rape them, and you can sell them, and you can give them to your children, just so long as they're foreigners. You can treat foreigners like shit. You can beat them to within an inch of your life, and as long as they can get up and walk around for like 2 days and then die later, you're okay. You did nothing wrong.
Right.
And we have that as sort of being like, I have to explain this as people of the time really wanted to own slaves, so he couldn't come in and say you can't own slaves. But then we have laws that say things like, don't have sex with your neighbor's wife. No ifs, ands, or buts. Just don't do it. And if you're going to sit around and tell me that men since the dawn of time have not both coveted their neighbor's wife and actually had sex with their neighbor's wife, and you don't think that would have been a problem for people to follow, I got a bridge to sell you. So, John, do you want to wrap up on this?
Yeah, I mean, essentially, I understand feeling out of your depth, and we definitely weren't mentioning like you haven't read your Bible as being like a knock against you.
No, not at all.
Yeah, when I was a Christian, I did not read my Bible. I did not read the Bible.
Can I end on something real quick?
Sure, absolutely, Will. But yeah, let's let John finish, and then we'll give you the last word.
Yeah.
Well, I was just gonna say that I didn't read my Bible as a Christian, and it wasn't until I got challenged on that to like what I believe and why I believe it. When I got challenged on that, that's when I started really analyzing that and reading the Bible and everything like that. So I think taking this opportunity to really go through and suss out what you believe and why you believe it about the Bible and the Trinitarian God, I think this is a key opportunity for you to really solidify, those things for yourself, as opposed to having somebody else instruct you as to what to think.
Yeah, right. Well, on that, right, I think ultimately the quest of God, like believing in him or not or whatever, is an individual quest that you have to figure out for yourself. And I do believe that you have to put, at some point, you have to put your ego on the side, and you have to say that you don't understand more than you understand. And so yeah, you have to figure like those questions, right? I'm sure there's many answers of God is evil and why he isn't, or this or that, but at the end of the day, you have to make up your own mind. And like for me personally, my faith in God, like I didn't get it fair. I got like revelations, right? I got some visions and stuff like that. But I know I have the right to be angry with God, to say I don't understand God, and it's very tough because the reflexes would be just to close myself to God. But I think I find much more value in cultivating a relationship with God and with faith and trusting in God for my life and my purpose and meaning. So this is, yeah.
I appreciate your honesty, Will. I think that my advice to you, were I to give you any, would be instead of focusing on you having to trust in God, focus on why you believe in God in the first place. I know you said you didn't want to talk about it, but focus on that and ask yourself, I understand, but I focus on it and then ask yourself, is that a good reason to do anything else in my life? Would I believe an investor who wanted $1 million for me based on these reasons or things like that? And then compare those feelings, the reasons you have for believing a God, and the next step is to say, okay, does that lead me to believe in the Christian God, because those are two different things. A lot of people have these, like the person in our first caller had these sort of what he would call spiritual experiences, like I just feel love and that's God, and then they glom on to what's around them in their community. They glom on to Christianity because it's the easiest answer they have, of the pocketed like answer to why am I having these feelings. Just because you believe there's a God doesn't necessarily you need to be a Christian. And just because you're a Christian doesn't necessarily mean you need to be an Old Testament Christian, right? So there's lots of things to consider there.
Yeah, and when I started, I told you guys I'm a Catholic heretic, so that's why.
Exactly. I found that interesting, by the way. I didn't get to ask that question, so that's good. All right, thank you so much there, Will. Anything for you to add there, Godless?
No.
All right. We have one more call. If you have a moment, should we take it?
Yeah, I'm good for it.
Great. So I think the pronunciation is Eve, or A-E-V-E, Eve Morningstar. She, her, they from Canada wants to talk about how the Christian God seems to view worship as a sexual thing. Am I pronouncing your name right? Is it Eve or Ave?
Are you able to hear me?
I'm able to hear you.
We got you.
Thank you. And I go by Ave as a play on atheist.
Got it.
I'm child-free, so I've gone a whole lot of pressure to have children, and I like to play on not a mother.
Yeah, got it. Understood. A-Eve, got it. As in an atheist, A-Eve, got it.
I got it.
Very nice. So you wanted to talk about the Christian God that views worship as a sexual thing. So could you explain to us where you see worship, what is worship, and how that is either literally or symbolically sexual?
Yeah, so first, are you guys comfortable with talking about this content of sexual discussion about sexual assault definitions and everything else like that before I proceed?
Absolutely.
Sounds good. So I am working on a master's thesis that's heavy in feminist discussion, where I apply John W. Loftus's The Outsider Test for Faith. I combine it with Hector A. Garcia's book, Alpha God, and I also combine it with as well with Hector Avalos's Fighting Words book, where he discusses his view of religious violence. And so I can take those together to create a feminist version of the idea of religious violence that Hector Avalos discusses, where I say that, all right, so whenever Christians have a definition, like with the Outsider Test for Faith, where they apply it to others, therefore we can apply it to them. And so when the Bible goes into detail saying that worship of other gods is adultery and whoring after other gods, wouldn't that imply that the worship of the biblical God is also a sexual matter if he views worship in general as something that's sexually related?
Have you done any linguistics? Can you hear me, by the way? My headphones are out. Okay, good. So this is an interesting concept. Have you done any linguistic studies of the meanings and translations of the word adultery from original text, or the closest to original text we have? Because I would not be surprised if multiple different words are translated as adulterous or adultery, and they have subtle but different meanings. I'd be intellectually curious to see if you've done any research there.
I fail in my linguistic capabilities, and so I heavily rely on texts by those who are more scholarly in the topic, such as, for instance, Professor Jennifer Bird and her books, Marriage in the Bible, where she goes into wooden translations of a lot of different terms like that.
Fascinating. So, John, what are your thoughts here on this study? This is an interesting study to me.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that there's a lot of sexual connotations with it, especially in the Old Testament's portrayal of like the of being in a relationship with God. Sorry, I had a dark screen up, and it was but being in a relationship with God, like it being a marriage, and like, you know, Israel's in a marriage with God, and there's so many different analogies of portraying God as the groom, and Jesus as, or not Jesus, but Israel, or the people, the followers, as the bride and everything. And so I think that it's a rather unique view, and I definitely think that part of it is some kind of sexual coercion, because God is definitely trying to control the sexual lives, or at least the character God in the theology. is trying to control the sexual lives of the adherents, and specifically the sexual lives of women, not so much the sexual lives of men, other than to protect men's property.
What? I am shocked. I'm shocked at the accusation.
Yeah. So I definitely see your point there, Eve. Eve?
Yes, Ave. Kind of like the same emphasis as atheist. So Ave. Yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to do it.
Trying to nail it.
I suck at pronouncing things, so I'm trying to get it right.
You're doing great. So I also take a lot of different theories. Like, of course, my thesis is 900 pages long in its draft form, let alone all my literature review. So this is more of a leading question of my initial one about the idea of that as such, especially because we have definitions of aggravated sexual assault and sexual assault in its different degrees. I'm from Canada. Would you mind if I read out our definitions of sexual assault, so that way any listeners would be familiar with the topic?
Sure.
I'd say the time that we have is probably limited, but we can probably just explain it to say the higher the degree, the more invasive and morally offending the behavior is. It can be everything from a low degree with an unwanted touching all the way to full-on sexual penetration with some sort of motive, getting all the way to the highest degree. So I accept the premise that we have, most cultures nowadays have degrees of various criminal offenses, including sexual assault. Is the specific wording relevant to your point?
Just one, where
okay.
I want to note that sexual assault does not have to include actual phallic penetration or anything. It can simply be sexual attention, or for instance, someone was stalking a person, for instance, the ever-present God of the Bible, who is apparently watching us all the time, including the two people in the Garden of Eden who were not aware to even be ashamed to cover themselves up. And so he was essentially being a voyeur at that point in time as well. But I wanted to know that aggravated sexual assault could simply be violence that has a sexual connotation to it as well, where it's, for instance, a stalker who commits violence against someone's reproductive or genital organs because of a desire to punish them sexually. And I would like to know that what if hell is both punishing atheists for unwanted sexual attention that we have declined from the biblical God, not to mention that the curse of Eve appears to be aggravated sexual assault as well too. For if women are cursed with childbirth, so what does that make all maternal mortality and morbidity statistics?
So I find it interesting. I'm not sure what conclusions or purpose or utility the observation would have other than just to point out some similarities. So I would encourage you, first of all, it would be more interesting, I think, if you expand it beyond the Canadian law and sort of look at all cultures that have been strongly influenced by Judeo.
To this for our talk show and our time today.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, so that's point one. Point two is, what is the end point of your publication? What do you want people to take away from it? And more importantly, what behaviors do you want to change based on this? What's the point? Is it, hey, the authors of these scriptures were heavily influenced by concepts of sexuality, or is there something more than that?
My end premise is the idea that previously we had blasphemy and heresy laws, where those were laws that Christians applied to non-Christians who they viewed as an ethnicity, as the original Christians said that non-Christianity is an ethnicity, and viewed it as almost in a racialized manner by viewing non-Christians as racialized caste. What if, as per the outsider test for faith, where religious views that are put onto non-religious members instead are put back onto them? What would it mean for ethics and morality discussion of philosophy if we would say that, what if the biblical God is a rapist, like someone who is committing sexual assault of non-Christians or just people in general, such as, for instance, all women? And what does that mean for those who choose to politically and financially support that being when we already have cases such as, for instance, Jeffrey Epstein cases going on? So it's more of a philosophical consideration of, currently in the world, we are still fighting heresy and blasphemy laws, what do it mean if we would have a counterpoint to it in the exact same way that whenever we have book bans going on, that we can always note that the Bible actually violates a lot of their obscenity definitions for trying to take down, for instance, LGBTQ books. Or, for instance, how the Satanic Temple has, for instance, in the past, put up a Baphomet statue in order to challenge Ten Commandment statues. What if we know that just like how Christians and others have used heresy and blasphemy laws against non-Christians, what about using mortal laws based on Epicurean ethics, aka ancient atheism, against Christians by knowing that if you're going to say that we deserve to have been charged with that in the past, and you're still not exonerating past witch trial victims, for instance, and past heresy trial victims, then should you not be subject to our laws being applied to your God? Why is your God not being able to be subject to human laws of morality?
Well, there's a couple of quick answers from an attorney. One is you don't have any place to address to serve God process. So you can't sue them and you can't arrest them. So from a practical standpoint, that's like the legal answer is
just take it to any church.
Yeah, I mean that's a tongue-in-cheek answer, but it might be fun to include in your paper. There are cases where judges have dismissed lawsuits against God on civil procedure grounds. Just, when you sue somebody, you file a complaint with the court, and then you have to serve the papers on God. And if you can't, you have to go to the judge and say, here's why I couldn't serve. And judges have just dismissed the case because, instead of saying there is no such thing as God, they're basically like, hey, I'll let you sue God if you want, but you have to serve him papers. And if you can't, then the case dismissed. And I kind of have that as a tongue-in-cheek response, but I also have it as a sort of, it would be interesting to add those cases to your paper as sort of a counterpoint. The other one, before I give it over to John, is I think intellectually it makes a good point, right? I think that intellectually saying, to this day, we have anti-blasphemy laws where we get calls occasionally from people in countries where if their family or their government knew they were calling us and saying they were atheists, they're risking their lives. We have journalists being executed in places like Singapore because they write about, it's not great to be a Muslim or something like that. We have a lot of those laws. I'm not sure how convincing the argument would be to say, well, those laws are designed to protect a God. What you're saying is those laws are designed to attack non-believers. And I'd agree with that generally with some exceptions. And then you're saying, wouldn't it turnabout be fair play if we attacked believers with man-made laws, specifically those having to do with sexual assault, and accuse God of being a sexual assault perpetrator, if I'm understanding you? I'm not sure that would move the needle on anybody's scale anywhere. I'm not sure. Do I have your argument right? Am I summing you up probably too tightly, but is that generally sort of the idea of what you're saying?
I actually go over a bunch of different things. I have two parts to my thesis. One is on feminist theory, and the other one is more on religious violence, where I take up the topic Christofascism. So it's all laws being applied. But specifically, I was especially inspired by Godless Engineer's post today, advertising for this show, where he noted his meme about atheists. So why didn't you just fabricate a body for yourself like you did for Adam? Dude, I just really like raping little girls and forcing them to give birth. So I wanted to focus on that topic because it is half of my thesis, because I do have a focus on feminist theory. However, I would note that as per the Outsider Test for Faith, as Christians in the past have brought non-believers into court by saying that they represent God, that we wouldn't have to bring God into court. We would simply have to bring the exact same group of people who previously claimed that they could represent God fully in court on their own.
Yeah, you won't get any sort of agency document signed. What are your thoughts, John?
Well, I was going to ask, are you, sorry, I was trying to follow along. Are you in agreement with my post, or do you think I went too far in my post?
I became atheist in the pews, hiding in the pews, 11 years old, from being sexually assaulted at Christian summer camp. I am in full agreement with your post.
Okay. No, yeah, because I get pushback sometimes from atheists on that. I'm so sorry you had that experience, by the way.
I agree.
And I'm kind of curious in your dissertation there, what kind of do you discuss like Mary being raped at all, like in that,
Yes, I do.
how that? Okay, yeah, because it's so strange, and I don't know if you've found this. Like, I don't know if you talk to many theists out there, Christians specifically, but they always seem rather surprised whenever you point out the fact that Mary was raped by God in that situation.
I got so much pushback at university.
Really?
I'll push back too. John and I have had this conversation, but I'm coming at it from a lawyer's point of view. And if you use the word rape, it's got this sort of, you talked about the tears, right? And typically it has to do with, sexual organs interacting against the will. I totally agree that she was assaulted, i.e. battered, technically, if you go with traditional law. But I disagree that she was raped. I'm not sure I agree that she was sexually assaulted, but I agree that something happened to her against the will that we would criminalize today.
So the way that I would...
Can I ask you a question?
I'm going to let you ask the question because I know what John's question I think is going to be, but let's see if they're the same question. Go ahead.
Are you aware of Professor Richard Carrier's books that have detailed how earliest Christianity viewed God essentially as an alien, for heaven and hell were said to exist somewhere between the earth and the moon, as it was believed that the heavens were part of the atmosphere, the firmament. And therefore, why must we think about God in the same limited sense that modern day Christians do, rather than in historic ways that Christians did, such as, for instance, simply referring to God as an alien, and therefore it might have different concepts of sexual behavior than we do. And at the end of the day, even if there is no sexual contact, is not sexual harassment, does it not also include in multiple definitions and cases that have been processed in our courts as well too, simply unwanted sexual attention, even if that does not come out to actual phallic or vaginal, phallic penetration of vaginal cavities or reproductive organs in general.
I think where you lose people, and John, I'd like you to give your side, because John's got a very good take on this that I just happened not to have bought into at this point. And I'm not saying it's because I disagree with it. I'm just not convinced yet. But I think the hiccup is always this concept of sexual. And my objection is from a legal standpoint and from a practical standpoint. I don't think this sells. I don't think people hear this and go, oh, you've got a point. I think they hear it and they recoil from it and go, there was no rape. There was no physical God. He magicked a baby into her. And that, under the law, might be battery, right? It could be pretty high degree of battery, but it's not a sexual assault because there was no sexual desire. Now, you're coming along and saying, well, what if he was an alien or thought of sex differently and all that stuff? Now you're really losing your audience, right? Now you're really you're stacking a hat on a hat to try to say, I've got something cool here, when in reality, I think most people will shy away from it. My argument is just the legally correct and better, based on people's popular understanding of what God was and what that incident was, is that it was a battery. But that's a very, maybe a distinction without a difference. I don't know. What are your thoughts, John?
Well, so the way, and I just want to point this out that Graham, cross-examiner, I've heard your particular objection to mine, and I've taken that as a challenge to
we had a back and forth. It was great, and genuinely, I asked him to flesh it out and all this stuff. I find it an interesting concept.
Yeah. So what I've done is I've synthesized a bunch of scholars in the area of some advanced feminist literature concerning sexual assault and rape and all that. And I've come up with this definition, and I've ran this by Dr. Ben, who agrees that this would apply to the rape label. And so my definition is, and I'd like to get Abe's take on this. The imposition of sexual access to another's body in a way that nullifies that person's authority over their own embodied domain, transforming them from a self-governing subject into a sexual object within someone else's control. Now, this sort of refocuses it to the harm that rape does as opposed to the mechanism of rape, because I don't think that the mechanism is necessarily important. It's the harm that is caused, and it's the controlling of sexual access to someone's body and all that. I don't know. What are your thoughts there, Ave?
I completely agree. I find that, as with a lot of feminist theory, that a lot of people have a misinterpretation of what sexual assault actually entails. And that includes more of a loss of autonomy, loss of power, than it does simply the mechanism. So, for instance, when I was 15 years old and being messaged inappropriate dick pics and stuff like that by people in authority over me, was that not a bit of sexual assault? Not only was I a minor, which, of course, Mother Mary of God was supposedly, according to the earliest Christians, approximately between the ages of 12 to 14 years old, but also we also have other cases as well, too, where sexual contact is not given. For instance, there's cases of artificial insemination where doctors use their place of authority to artificially inseminate with their own semen, even if they do not actually have phallic penetration. I think it's more that a lot of
that is your best argument right there.
Yeah. I think that it does not have to be about the mechanism, because a lot of our laws and our feminist discourse has not been about simply that has to include actual penetration. That's why I was reading out the aggravated sexual assault definition, which does not include it.
Correct. And you're going to find different degrees, but the commonality that people will impose upon that is this concept of carnality, of desire, of sexual interest, and then some sort of overt act, right? That's typically. Now, you can have some fourth-degree sexual assault where you don't have to prove some sort of sexual intent, possibly, and those are usually prescribed out like, hey, you're a teacher in a school, and they're in your care, and then you touch this thing. You might not have to prove intent there, like this carnality concept, but it is often part of, especially the more advanced ones, and certainly anything that the average person would call rape. When you go look at the law, at least in Maryland, that's where I practice, you're going to have these concepts of intent, sexual desire, carnality. They use all sorts of different words to differentiate it from I cut you open and put a fertilized egg in you and I closed you back up. That's aggravated assault, but there was nothing sexual about it in the legal sense. Now, it had to do with like your gender maybe, so it might be sexual in the biological sense. But in the legal sense, that was just like, I cut you open, I put a Lego in your uterus versus I cut you open, I put a fertilized egg in your uterus. Those are both just aggravated assault, you know. And again, this is me coming at it from a lawyer.
Yeah,
that's half of my objection, but the other half is I don't think it wins you any arguments to say rape. I think assault or battery and things is a softer, more convincing argument that doesn't shut down brains immediately. But I agree that it's an interesting statement. Go ahead, John. Sorry.
Well, I mean, I guess I was going to say that I think that it is a difference in what we're classifying as sexual, because
yeah.
Maybe correct me if I'm wrong there, Cross, but it seemed to me like when you were describing sexual, you were describing it as like a attraction, like there was some kind of attraction that was behind it.
That is at sort of the medium levels typically. Like in Maryland, if you do vaginal penetration against their will, that's rape, right? That's the definition of like first-degree rape. I don't think there's any sort of carnality in it, but there might be a version of it, of a first-degree rape that's like, you know, sub-item 3. I can look it up and all that stuff and get back to you on that. But the primary, usually first-degree, is forced, what we would consider sex, vaginal penetration. That's rape. But then there's these degrees. There's first, second, third degree rape, first, second, third, fourth degree sexual assault, and then there's attempted and all of those. And each of them have multiple subsections. So it is something that legislators have spent hundreds of years on. For example, this is you probably have this in your paper. You seem very well researched. But another interesting stat is that the FBI didn't classify male rape as rape until like the 1970s. even though it fit the definition. And we had to go back and look at all of these things. So add that to your paper because that's interesting. But yeah, if you go and look at all of them and you just Google for your state, you know, rape, criminal law definitions, you'll get into all of these. And the ones that are not like the obvious rape, the one that people think of, those tend to have you touch to the person with some sort of malintent. There's an intent. Like they don't want people getting arrested because I accidentally brushed up against somebody, right? There is this intent element you need to prove as a prosecutor. You can't just have somebody bump into you on the subway and say, oh, I was sexually assaulted because you happened to hit my breast or my vagina or whatever, or penis, whatever, whichever way it's going. So there are these intents, and those intents tend to have this concept. Like, how do you define intent? Like, if I just intended to touch you there, but I didn't do it for some sort of sexual gratification or carnal reasoning, my legislature might classify that as aggravated assault, but not sexual. Whereas if I can prove that it was done for these reasonings out of sexual gratification reasonings, now all of a sudden it's sexual assault. Other jurisdictions might draw the line elsewhere. So I think that's an interesting study, is comparative sexual assault laws across jurisdictions in Judeo-Christian influenced countries.
And so may I bring you back to my original question? Is it possible that due to the heavy focus on the biblical God wanting humans to love him above all else and calling the worship of other gods adultery and a whoring, and viewing it as that, even making threats of sexual violence, quite frankly speaking, saying he would lift up the skirts of Israel and other threats that, quite frankly, seem like marital rape? Is there not a case to be made that the biblical God has shown intent?
I don't think so, because I don't believe there's a God. Now, if we get past that, I think the God character, well, it depends. The answer I would give has layers that are related to, like, I don't believe a God. Do I agree that the people who wrote those passages had sex on their mind? 100%. That's how they dealt with the world. I think if you study history, it's all about property and sex. That's really all it's about. So that's the analogies they had. Now, you then have to go further and say, people take this to believe it is sexual in the same way that we classify sex as a crime in certain situations in our law. And I think that's a bit of a leap. I think a lot of people will say that's symbolic. It wasn't meant to be literal. We hear that all the time on the show. You'd have a lot of work to do to convince somebody that because there's all this symbology in the Bible about worshiping another God is like you're cheating on me, to then turn around and say, therefore, I should apply modern sexual assault laws to you, a believer.
You know, I'm wondering if there's, because hearing it described that way, their cross, it really reminds me of the power dynamics contained within pedophilic, situations, because because bigots all the time want to try to portray pedophilia as sometimes homosexual in nature.
Right.
And that's not at all what it is, because the main thing about a mind of a pedophile is the imposition of control and power over another individual. It's less about like the sexual attraction that they have to any specific like sex or gender. It's more about the power that they can exert over an individual and everything. And I'm wondering if there's some kind of connection there, which I don't know if you've considered that at all there, Ave, at all, but
I have.
I mean,
that's part of why I made a comment earlier. Sorry about interrupting there. I have. No, that's part of why I made a comment earlier about how Adam and Eve were not even aware to be ashamed. This seems like if you have to eat a medication, we'll say pharmacopoeia, like witchcraft, where if you take a certain herbal or fruit medicine that gives you a specific power, which is what the fruit of the tree of knowledge, the fruit of the tree of good of knowledge of good and evil appears to be in the Garden of Eden, where they have to consume this in order to even be aware that they're walking around naked in order to be ashamed of themselves. They obviously have a mentality far below the biblical God, even simply to gain knowledge that the biblical God has, but that's not even just the mental differences, there's also the difference of age gap. How in the world can humans who reach max 100 years, or if you believe the Bible, 900 years, how can we ever approach a God who supposedly, according to the Bible, is here somewhere between 6,000 years old to possibly billions of years old, if you believe that he's existed since the Big Bang? How can you ever approach that level of mentality of difference, especially when one is omniscient and one is limited to a mortal life that does not have any capacity to have omniscience?
Yeah, no,
There's a huge power differential.
yeah, I definitely think that that's a concerning connection there between the two, and I think that you're right on the money as far as all that goes. Of course, I know that Cross here is going to disagree with the both of us on God's grapey nature towards Mary, but yeah, I mean, I think that there's a lot of connections, in the Bible between the sexual nature that God is portrayed in and his relationship with human beings in general. So I think you got a good paper, a good idea there, and I'm not surprised that you're getting pushback from university, people whenever you question the long-standing ideas like that. You're always going to get pushback. I hope that that you stay strong in that, and you push forward with it, and don't let them intimidate you into silence, because I know that can happen sometimes. But yeah, I think that you're on a good track there.
Thank you.
I agree. I think that despite my objections, the research you've done, your knowledge is obviously very impressive, and I would continue to pull that thread and see where it takes you. I am a where the rubber hits the road type of guy. That doesn't mean I don't like academic papers. I read them all the time, but I always want the paper to say, therefore, society should do X. And if that X is, there's this language in the Bible about sexuality, a whole bunch of studies about sexuality, therefore we should prosecute Christians for sexual assault. If that's the therefore, I think you're not going to convince anybody, because I wouldn't vote for convicting Christians of sexual assault because they were Christian. I think it's an interesting hypothetical, like what if we did it, but I would try to, if that is indeed the conclusion, I would try to buttress that with some other proposed legislation that would even if the proposal is, hey, simply introducing this legislation would create a discussion that would be helpful in moving the ball, that would be an interesting conclusion.
That's more the intent.
Yeah.
The latter bit there. Yeah.
Yep.
It's more of a hypothetical, in the same way that Hector Avalos discusses the idea of religious violence and how to approach it by redefining this hesitance that people have to even label a very clear instance of religious violence as religious violence. It's instead being like, all right, but how about we actually label this as a problematic matter in the first place? Yeah.
No, I totally agree. Saying, a headline of Mary was raped serves that purpose tremendously. I always worry about, is it going to shut people down too early, right? That's why I say, well, wait a second, let's use a slightly different term, but I think our goals are the same.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much for your time today. This was an excellent call to end on. It's one of the most unique calls I've ever gotten doing this.
Yeah.
Please,
thank you so much.
Thank you, AE, for calling in.
Yeah, please call back or send us an email and update us as to how it's going. And if you do get published, please let us know, because I'd love to see if I can get behind the paywall and get a copy. Don't get me started on academic paywalls.
I don't believe
have a good one.
I should have paywalls, but yes. Thank you so much for your time, Conflict Dominer, and for Godless Engineer. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate it. Well, Godless, I think we got through it. It was longer than I expected. We had a lot of calls. I really appreciate your insight, especially on that last one. I knew that would be right up your alley.
No, yeah, and I know that you're coming at it from a legal perspective, and I know that there's a vast difference there. And my wife, she speaks legalese, and so I usually have to run things by her, and as to whether or not I can say this or that, as if it's technically correct. I always want to be technically correct, and so that's something that I always have to kind of keep in mind. So, but yeah.
I agree. I want to be technically correct, but I also, like I said, I'm this rubber hits the road guy, and I'm like, if you get up on stage, if you're out in the parking lot and you say Mary was raped and, prove me wrong, maybe you'll get some people to drop by. But if you say, God violated Mary's rights, let's talk about that, then you'll get, I think, a bigger audience that's willing to actually listen to that. That's just the only point I was making. But I'm wrong about things all the time, and that maybe I'm not a politician and I don't know what plays. I've seen politicians get elected that do some crazy shit, as we've seen lately.
Well, I will admit that the Mary was grape thing, while I'm 100% behind that, like I will, that's a hill that I will definitely die on.
Sure.
But I will admit that because of the reception that it gets, I usually run with it because of the fact that it will cause people to be like,
what do you mean?
Yeah, it's like they want to argue with it so much. They're like, nope. And like, even if I went with your version of it, they would still have a problem because they're like, oh, but she agreed that was fine. It's like, no, maybe you should read that again, because they don't understand the difference between acquiescing and giving consent. And it's crazy.
I actually went there when you were talking about this. The first time I heard you propose it, I went and did a bunch of research and made up some documents about definitions of different degrees, and went and read the passages in the Bible, and then I went and read apologetic defenses of that impregnation and all of that. It's a fascinating topic, and I really do think it's something we should all pursue as some sort of have that sort of thing ready to pull out of our belt at any given time, because there is a mental somersault that people have to do to defend it, which is, well, she couldn't resist and she didn't want to resist because it was God. That sort of thing. Yeah,
the thing that gets me it seems like every time, at least every stream where that comes up, you get somebody that's like, but she liked it.
No, creepy.
Oh, why you gotta be that way? Hey,
let's end on a super chat, shall we?
Well, yeah, let's end on a super chat. But also, I think that we've got we've got a backup.
We have to bring Jamie on. Yes.
Yeah.
So let's. Why don't we bring Jamie on and read the super chat at him, and then ask him?
I think he's currently.
Oh my God.
35 right now. Hey, what's up there, Jamie? How you doing?
Talk to me, Goose. So this is my anti-irrationality helmet and my straight pipe to this tank of copium I have down.
How did it work? And so, I have to tell viewers, when
I do have
on the air, we have multiple
to say about some
that we can
calls.
see. Hold on, Jamie. He's got his mic out. When we are on, we can see the main feed you see, and then we see cameras for each participant. Jamie has been sitting in that thing for at least an hour.
Just for the jokes.
We've been
I am a weirdo that way, but I was putting it on and taking it off as a kind of visual commentary on some of the calls. Yep. The more I put my mask and visor on, the less I was getting on board with some of the people. Your first caller, the vibes, man, just vibes and vibes and vibes. I'm like, cool for you, cool story, bro. But if you can't provide any kind of evidence of any kind, it's not going to be very convincing to anybody, let alone us who are skeptics. Mohammed, oh God, I was watching Truth Wanted earlier. He called into that, and he was just as odious. And that you cut it off at the right time, like that. Like, oh, it's no problem marrying a 9-year-old. It's like divine command theory all the way up and down the line. And then your penultimate caller talking about trying to. God, I'm almost getting confused. It was like it almost becomes static in my head. So many different arguments about how he's going to go about believing in his God and justifying things, and I apologize. It all kind of got blasted out of my head.
Yeah, there were a couple in there. We had the person who was the Catholic heretic who didn't really want to talk about why, and was, I think, unfamiliar with some of the passages we were talking about. But the caller before that was the one that was, I thought he started out really great. He had some problems with us interrupting and asking questions, but it was a big, giant circle, and we ended up back where we started out.
Yeah. And then the final caller, while I I would never deign to even close to minimize the horrific impact of sexual assault and violence against sexual violence against people, women and children especially. Oh God, don't cancel me for this. As a rhetorical tool against actual believers, actuallying them about the technicalities around was it rape or not, I think maybe somewhat obfuscated. I put it kind of in the same category of like, Jesus was female, you know, because only one set of DNA was in that zygote from his mum, so he's probably got ovaries. And I'm like, that great thought experiment, write a paper on it, fantastic. It does me no good because one, I am like you, Cross. I'm a rubber hits the road kind of guy. I'm also stupid, so I need like simple, actionable. Despite the voice, I need simple, actionable arguments that I can just go, let's get down to brass tacks. God violated this woman's bodily autonomy. However you slice it, is that okay?
Yeah, that's kind of where I am. I agree. I think it's a great topic. And either way, go ahead, John.
Well, I was going to say, I don't think that the apologetic response though to that is any different than me pointing out that it was rape. Right. Like, I think that regardless of how you package it, they're still going to be like, nah, she liked it.
I totally agree. And there's two approaches here. There's, I don't mean this in a negative way, but there's the clickbaity title value of it, of me putting up the table that says, God raped Mary, changed my mind. There's that attention grabbing. And I think that serves a purpose. And then there's the efficiency argument of if I don't use the word rape and I say battered or assaulted against her will, I save myself 3, 4, 5 minutes of arguing about vaginal penetration with a penis, right? I get that out of the way and I just say, he put a baby in her, she couldn't have consented, look at the power dynamic, that's battery, right? And I sort of get to the point of he's doing this without her consent. That to me is the crime, the ultimate crime.
We can get to the super chat here in a second. I don't mean to get off too much into the weeds on this, but I think that you're going to encounter the same kind of definitional argument or tug of war with battery, because they're not going to appreciate the idea of God engaging in battery with Mary in general. Like they're going to have a problem with any way that you package it when it's some kind of negative action towards Mary.
Yes, I agree. I'm just able to pull out the law and say, cause himself or something to touch her without her consent.
Right.
That's battery. And like I can say definitionally what he did is battery. And then they have to go to where they really want to go the whole time, which is she wanted to. He can do it. All of those arguments, which is really where they end up anyway.
Right. Well, I mean, that's what in our conversation specifically is what made me generate that definition that I can just pull out and be like, aha, see, this is the definition. And like that's the one that we're working off of here. And so then we can move past it kind of quick. So yeah.
It's great. It's great because and if you have like a poster of it where you can just say, here are the elements, A, B, and C. Did he do A? Yep. Did he do B? Yep. Did he do C? Yep. So he meets our definition of something we deem as a society as criminal. Why is he a good guy? And then you get to the backflips.
well, because I'm so dense that light bends round me. My biggest fear is that I don't want to get into the weeds on something technical for fear of accidentally stumbling into a Martin Bailey argument. That's my big thing. Like, oh, I can't defend this. I've got to go broad now. And that's just me. Anyway, super chat.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, super chat. We had one super chat, and it was from Anne Christine, the Donut Fiend. Thank you. I want to say that again, Anne Christine, the Donut Fiend. I want to join you in your Fiend of the Donut organization. Gave us $5 and said, divine command theory is always used to justify sociopathic behaviors.
Yep.
I cannot come up with a better summation of it. I can't think of an argument where somebody has said divine command theory is the answer, and it wasn't in defense of something that was horrific.
Yeah. Also, Anne, I am still the slow boy donut. Rock on donut power.
On that note, we should say goodbye. Thank you. Come back next Sunday and see all our shows again. Bye-bye.
Yep. Bye, y'all.
Thanks, everybody.
What will it take for you to start opening your eyes, to start questioning the bullshit everyone around you buys? You think it's any of your business what goes on between my thighs? I wonder when we'll be rid of your lies.
Watch Talk Heathen live Sundays at 1 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTTH and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callth.